Order. This is a meeting of both ordinance and charter and rules together. I am Magrath-Smith. I am the chair of charter and rules. And from my committee here, I have to my left Council President Tessa Murphy-Romboletti, and to my right, I have Councilor Luna Vacan.
So, and then we are, so opening the meeting for ordinance too as well. I am the chair, and I have with me committee members. I have Councilor Magrath-Smith and Councilor, I'm losing my words today, Councilor Linda Vacan. So I entertain a motion to take up the first item, I believe item 6. So do I hear a second? A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. And then.
Did you say item what?
6. And then item 6 was filed by Councilor Jordan and Councilor Vacan, order that the City Council adopt the attached substitute Municipal Modernization Ordinance. I will open it up to Councilor Jordan and Vacan just to kind of expand a little bit on that substitute modernization ordinance, and then we can continue the conversation from there.
Okay.
So if I can.
You go ahead, Linda. Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure.
Let you
no
pick
problem.
it up.
Yep.
Thanks.
Before we
Right.
start, can I just name the date and time? I think we need to know
Yes,
at the beginning of the meeting.
Go ahead. So today, May 29th, and we beginning at 6:37 p.m. Thank you.
So just as an overview for the modified draft for consideration, the main things that are addressed in there are lines of authority. And I want to note that we need to make consistent any criteria for any jobs that we might approve. And the other matter, there were some contextual changes that we made, but I think the biggest issue in the room is that to the public and to the council as a whole, we have for a long time been talking about treasurer being appointed and the potential of combining that with collector. And people have for a long time understood the mayor's desire to have a CAFO. All these other new positions in here are something that are new to everybody in the original draft. So you will see language in there that allows for, and I would advocate for, some of the positions being held together rather than being established as separately. As an example, if we are going to move forward with a CAFO, then that CAFO, in my view, should also serve as the comptroller. I don't think the city council should be looking at all these positions and filling them and saying, here, CAFO, here's all the people that we've decided are going to be working for you. You're responsible for them and you're in charge of them. And but we're going to tell you what they're going to do and who they're going to be. And so I think as a matter of just organizational professionalism, that is a matter for consideration. And I would just note, and this is just speaking for myself, that unless I can see no net increase in costs, I'm not going to support 3 new positions in the city government with the burden going on the taxpayer. Because we're looking at a budget right now that's at least by my reading, a 4.6% increase with home values still going up. So I'm going to estimate we're looking at another 5 to 6% tax increase for the residents. So I've asked for in the previous meetings a side-by-side so we can see how the costs, if we're moving from the base budget that we have in front of us to the optional budget, that's a separate piece, how that looks financially. So those would just be my opening comments to the draft. Thank you.
Councilor Jordan?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just a couple of things. One is it was good that we had the initial starting point to work with. So the view was work with that and then do a red line. So obviously a lot of time went into doing the edits. The goal was to try and really capture the spirit of CAFO, not just CFO, CAFO, administrative and finance. And that is to have really a true central business office where personnel, payroll, all these different functions are in here. Some of the things that I found really interesting in the initial draft was the desire to bring in the school department central business office. I thought that's awesome. So I'm all on board to do that. I think that's actually provides a unique opportunity. One of the suggestions I'll have later is to have, and I think I might have sent it around in an email, was to have at some point Sean Mangano come. What does he have for positions? How does that all fit in there? He has accountants and different people working for him. Do we have any synergies, economies of scale there with the school department? So I took that to spirit. I really like the director of internal audit position. Think it provides almost like an inspector general of Holyoke type role. I give added teeth to this by also making sure that our personnel director actually is the personnel director of the whole city, not people doing this and this department doing that. Everything runs through her. Okay, and she's under the direction of the CAFO. And so we have all of these functions being centralized, no other departments doing their payroll. We have one payroll area. So this is the general gist of where we go with this. Try to create as much balance as I can where a lot of the positions that were formerly appointed by the mayor are now appointed by the CAFO because he or she will appoint the CAFO. And positions that were still under the council in terms of who were appointed still remain appointed by us. People that we had confirmation authority under already, that was maintained, okay? So a lot of those type of relationships stay there. There's definitely some room for discussion relative to things like the terms of office, right? Like in the initial draft, the CAFO's put in here as a 3-year term. I'm open to a 5-year term if that's desirable. I kept it at 3 years because that was in the initial draft. I also talk about the law department respective to 2 positions that they have. One is relative to collective bargaining. In the responsibilities of the CAFO, that position is responsible for labor management, collective bargaining agreements, and such. So in this draft, it speaks to taking what is effectively now the contract position that Russ is doing and would put that under the CAFO to be appointed so that the negotiator is directly responsible to the CAFO. This also leaves the law department freed up to handle day-to-day employment issues like discrimination claims, sexual harassment claims, time and wage, hour and wage rather, disputes, just general advising of government on a whole nother things, all the other sundry of things that the law department does on property issues and claims and all of that. But the contract negotiation component would run through the CAFO in this scenario. The other one is, I think we solve the other issue, which is if we're going to truly have an inspector general, director of internal audit position, that person needs to be independent, needs to also have independent legal support. Two for one special here, though, because it also serves the role of providing the legal counsel role to the city council, which has been an age-old conflict that we've had, which is that our advisor is appointed by the law department who's serving under the supervision of the mayor. So now the council can get It's independent legal counsel. Meanwhile, this person can also serve as the director of internal audits advisor, so that when somebody doesn't do what they're supposed to be doing and they need advice to say, hey, so-and-so isn't responding, there's not these conflict of interests, DPW ignores me, or fire department ignores me, or who knows what, or the mayor ignores that person, whoever it could be. The law department right now, where all the legal services are coalesced in that one role, basically serves as the gatekeeper for any sort of enforcement action, advice, any of that. If we're going to have an inspector general type role, they need to have the legal support that they're going to need. So that's a new change in here. The rest of it, I think, I think the other change that I think is noteworthy is, for now, not against it per se, but open to it as what I would call a phase 2, is this whole IT department, and should we have contracted services versus the IT director? I'm agnostic on that. I have a totally open mind on that issue. Haven't formed an opinion. Would need a lot more data. We would need to invite these people in. What do you do? How much does this cost? If we had this, what can we eliminate? I mean, like that needs really a study. I don't know if the mayor wants to earmark some consulting. Maybe he already has, and there's a report. I don't know. But that type of in-depth analysis would need to be done into that. And then I think we can strap that on to this afterwards in sort of a phase 2. So anyways, that's the general tenor of it. Here certainly to stimulate conversation. A lot of it, other stuff I thought was just like housekeeping type edits. There could be additional charter changes that need to go with this to effectuate this. I think that's the gist of what the law department mentions in their memo from an hour ago, that we might need to make further charter amendments. So we should get that into the package and get their advice on that as well. So I think I'll stop there. But I tried to make this as a central business type office. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Magrath-Smith.
I have 6 things on my list, but we don't have to tackle them all right now. But I'm looking, if someone else doesn't bring them up, I'll bring them up. And some of them are really tiny, ticky-tacky things like, oh, there's gendered language on page 18. Can we please fix that, right? And other things are more major. So the first thing I wanted to ask this group to consider is, and Jeffrey, if you could please bring it up on the screen. So the section V, or 5, composition of financial activities, under A, it says the Department of Administration and Finance shall consist of the CAFO 5. Yep. The Department of Admin and Finance shall consist of the CAFO and such other personnel as from time to time may be approved by the City Council and Mayor for the proper execution and fulfillment of his or her duties and responsibilities. And I wondered if that was clear enough, and if we are just effectively referring to other places in ordinance where we describe how rules are created, or if we actually have to name there more specifically what we mean by approval by City Council and Mayor. That's my first question.
Are you referring to the section on the copy we have in front of us tonight?
So this is in 5B you're
It's
referring
'cause
to?
I'm not
5A.
seeing that.
5A?
This would be under 6,
All right. So
item 6.
your
No,
question
I'm
is
talking about the handout.
that the Department of Administration and Finance shall consist of a CAFO and such other personnel as from time to time may be approved by the City Council and the Mayor for the proper execution or fulfillment of his or her duties and responsibilities.
Yeah.
And your question is, you think perhaps your question is, if I understand it right, is should we be spelling out all those things now as opposed to, okay,
Because we're saying this is going to be the basis of shifts in ordinance. So then, are we just referring then to other processes that are in the ordinances elsewhere? In which case, I would love to refer those, or you go back to them and reference them perhaps. Or are we naming here, what does approval look like?
For the personnel, right? Because what we're saying right now, any personnel, I think my initial answer to that question would be, this ordinance articulates all the positions that the council and mayor are approving at this time. If in the event that there would be new positions, that process would have to repeat itself in that the council and mayor would have to create additional jobs. In the original right, it basically said the CAFO could just create those jobs. And so I don't think that doesn't seem consistent the way we've done things in the past, which is somebody wants to form a new job, they start with the mayor. They have to come to him, he has to then come to us, and that's our process. As opposed to just delegating, I don't think the mayor and the council would want to give up that power to just say CAFO can create jobs. I wouldn't think so.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the reason that edit was made from CAFO to council and mayor.
Okay. I think that makes sense to me, if it makes sense to everybody else.
That's in keeping with how we've
Okay.
done, I mean, what we're doing now,
Okay.
or what we're considering doing.
And then on page 7, underneath CAFO, it says there that this is going to be subject to confirmation by the city council for a term of not more than 3 years.
Yep.
I guess my thought amongst the people in this room, why do we want 3 years? What is the purpose for that? Instead of 2, instead of 4, instead of 5? Why 3? I'm just like, where did that number originally come from? What was the intent or thought around that? And are the people here happy with that number? Is that the number you want? What are the pros and cons of that?
Thought about the number.
That's probably in the Springfield template.
If I may, real quick, I think customarily, and to my understanding, is common, like it's a common practice that municipalities are kind of moving towards with a 3-year contract. But it's open to the interpretation of the body if you want to do more or less. I think for me, in my opinion, I'd still lean towards the 3, just in case. And if you want to continue to work with the person, you can renew the contract. If you do 5, you're stuck with them for 5. And if, let's say, 2.5 years, 3 years go through, and you kind of want to let them go for some reason, you still owe them 2 years. So I'd be more strongly in favor of 3, but again, it's up to the will of the body and everyone else. That's just my side. Councilor Reagan and then Councilor Murphy-Romboletti.
Yeah, and I think it's in between the term of the city council and the length of term of the mayor.
Okay.
And so, depending, of course, when it went into effect, it would change how it fell. But it just sort of seems like a reasonable length.
Councilor Murphy-Romboletti, or President.
That's fine. Are the other financial appointments like auditor, tax collector, are those 3 years?
Good question.
Yeah, sorry, it wasn't really a comment, it was a question.
I can answer that. So, yes, the treasurer will be new, right? Although
It was 4 years.
I believe, it was 4 years, correct? Thank you. It's been a long time since somebody's filled all 4
Well,
years, but yeah. That's good, that's really good. So, the way all the chartered positions are 3 years, right? Just along with all the boards and commissions and everything else, it's usually a 3-year term. The one exception, and I think this is an interesting model to talk about, is the purchasing director. If I remember correctly, the initial term is for 3 years. They're appointed by the mayor, confirmed by the council, but the initial term is for 3 years, and then the re-up is a 5-year term. Essentially, you can see how things go, and then, if it works. To the earlier question about the length of time, and Councilor Rivera's 100%, this is just boilerplate, it was meant for discussion for this exact conversation. I from all of our internal conversations, the conversations with the council, it is really an idea that this position wouldn't, because this position isn't serving at the pleasure of the mayor nor the council, right? This is supposed to be independent of that it would be long enough so that it wouldn't be like, a mayor's a 4-year term, they're cycling through CAFOs constantly, that might be one argument to go for a longer term, but that's, obviously for the council to decide. But that's how it's structured right now in the finance department. So it's 3 years. They're staggered. So this year, for example, the tax collector is up, just coincidentally, and it would be the first year appointing the treasurer. So if they were to be merged, it's harmonious. And then the other auditor and the assessors rotate, and you guys do that at your first meeting in January usually.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else before I give Meg more questions? I know. I just want to make sure.
I don't have to keep going, but
Hold on.
I do.
Microphone.
And I don't have a teacher voice, so you can't hear me. A lot of the employment contracts for the schools, like the supervisors and the directors, are also 3 years,
Okay.
just for reference.
Go ahead, Meg.
So the next one is on page 8. And this is maybe it'll get spicy. I don't know. I've gone back and forth so many times on how I feel about the residency requirement that's named in here. So it says they have to become a resident of the city within 1 year of appointment. To the extent required by law, I have a big question around why that's in there. Like, can we require it or not? Because it seems like a very weird exemption to put in there that seems to indicate that there are reasons why we couldn't require it. So I'm not sure what that means in there. And also, I totally want the perfect meld of person to step forward, to appear, to be a Holyoke resident, to have incredible financial capacity and be ready to walk into this role. That's what I want. But what if we can't find that person who lives in Holyoke, or we are just like cutting off our own legs in terms of narrowing the pool of people that we can get interested in this? And I know we've talked about this in a number of different settings about other jobs too, but the housing market is not kind right now. And even just requiring someone to move right now, it means selling your house and taking on an 8% mortgage, and maybe you find a house that's up for sale, maybe you don't. We have friends who've been looking for a house now for 2 years, literally can't find one, are trying. So it's a specific climate now. And I know that this stuff we're trying to create is, for the long term, not just for this exact moment, but we're also in that moment. So I have lots of concerns about us having the residency requirement. And although I really want someone from Holyoke to be in this position, I also worry about making it a requirement. So I don't know where we are landing on this, but I've been struggling with it. I wanted to name that.
Madam President.
It really doesn't. You can call me Tessa. It's all good.
I just want to make sure I'm
Yeah, I know. So this is one of the things that I had circled, and I do want to discuss more. I know I've never been shy about how I feel about residency requirements, but I feel like if there's like a way for us to have a little bit more wiggle room on what the timeline might look like, because I think I do understand the intent behind it, and I also, as someone who was looking for a house for almost 2 years, I do think 1 year isn't really fair, but I think that the intent, I would hope, is like, we want someone who's local. We don't want someone who's driving out from Boston every day, someone who's never been to Holyoke or they can't really point us out on a map, someone who is committed to our city. And I think there is enough room to, and this is something that I haven't really brought up before, but I'm trying to think about the middle, and I don't know if would it make people feel better if it was like a radius of residency from Holyoke for a certain amount of time, if someone lives in South Hadley or Chicopee, they're working here every day. Odds are they're probably going to buy lunch here, or they're going to go get their coffee on the way to work here. I just think I would hate for that to be the thing that gets in the way of us finding a qualified candidate. So if in the spirit of compromise, maybe it's 2 years, maybe it's, you got to show us you're trying. I don't know. If there's just something like that, that's just how I feel about the residency piece. So thank you. And I don't want to get spicy, so I wasn't trying to.
So I'll get spicy for a second. For me, it is what it is. I feel like I've sacrificed on multiple other positions that have come up, and I need people to buy into Holyoke, like literally buy in. It's not fair. It's not just here. It's also the nonprofit world. There are a lot of people that get the high-paying jobs in the community of Holyoke, but do not live in Holyoke, do not pay taxes to Holyoke. And for me, it's unfair for the people that actually are here and they buy into Holyoke and they invest in Holyoke, that their dollars get spent somewhere else and get siphoned to other communities. But again, it's what makes sense for us as a community, and I'm willing to sacrifice again. But I have to say that for me, it is hard every time that we give a job to someone that's not necessarily fully buying into the community here in Holyoke. But that's just me getting spicy. Councilor Jordan.
Once again, I agree with Councilor Rivera. It's here's the thing is, I've always been way back to now, I've always been a super strong supporter of residency in the city of Holyoke, just because I've watched what's really happened. All the arguments are excellent, though, because everything you're saying is completely true. And you're right. It's really a challenge. It's really hard to make this work. So I can see why we continue to we bump up against these guardrails of do it, don't do it. But here's the thing that we have to also face is we're trying to build a middle class in this town. And without these good paying jobs being here, think about the message that we're also sending too. How many times have we had licensees that come before us for different grants, cannabis, you name it? We want you to hire how many of them be from Holyoke, right? We don't even have that as our own rule. Yet we sit here as hypocrites and tell them to go and hire all these Holyoke people to work in their places and give preference to Holyoke people. The other thing that I simply cannot ignore any longer is the fact, to become a cop in this town, to become a fireman in this town, you must have the residency preference. In order to, by law, have the residency preference, you are required to live here for at least 1 year after the date of appointment. But magically, where are they after the 1 year? So all these arguments about it's so difficult to bind the other house and my kids are in the schools, they somehow have magically managed to all move out of Holyoke. I could tell you examples where whole departments of this city that lived in Holyoke, today no one lives in Holyoke. It's a mass exodus out the door. And we as leaders have to be sensitive to the fact of we need this middle class. We need people buying the homes here, shopping in our stores. And no matter how close I live to East Long Meadow, I live over here in Holyoke. And I couldn't tell you honestly, if I worked in East Long Meadow all day and I commuted back, do I really know what the hell is really going on in East Long Meadow at night? Even though I'm in proximity to East Long Meadow, if that were true, I don't work in East Long Meadow, but if I were, I really wonder. And so I think we've got a lot of things going on in the city where people are making these choices and are not living here, be it, I won't even go into all the stigmas, but we all know what they are, right? and the schools, the crime, the Holyoke's reputation, the blah, 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 blah. Well, how the hell do we turn it around if we're not turning it around? So that's my point on the residency. And now, if all the top positions, we got an item on this agenda for later that I want to talk about, fire chief. That's an unheard of. This position's always been a resident of Holyoke. Apparently not anymore. So, this is just one thing right after another, and I think what we want to consider is, once with the assessor, we did say we hired someone who, this is a long time ago, hired a person, and we said, within your term, 3-year term, you must move to Holyoke. At the end of they gave them 3 years to move here, okay? And that person at the end of it decided, I still don't want to move to Holyoke, so bon voyage, we appointed somebody else. And maybe the 1 year needs to be longer for all the points you made. But someone could sit here and make a 180-degree, completely valid argument against everything I just said, and I have to agree. It's difficult in the ideal world, but I'm watching this flight out of our city of these middle-class jobs that we need here. Imagine what Holyoke could be like if all this, a vast majority of the school department lived in Holyoke, and the vast majority of the police and the fire and these positions lived in Holyoke. I think we'd have a radically different community in many regards. One person's opinion. Thank you.
Councilor Tessa Murphy-Romboletti.
Thank you. So, appreciate the discussion. I do know where you stand, and I know where Councilor Rivera stands. I think we all know where each other stands on residency. What I'm hoping to get and what I was trying to propose was an actual compromise. Mm-hmm. But I just want to understand if there is wiggle room, because, and if there is, for the sake of moving things forward, what would that wiggle room look like? Because I'm open to it. I'm not going to dig my heels in on the residency. I will never agree with you guys on the residency requirement wholeheartedly. It's just, in my opinion, not best practice. But that's okay, and I respect your opinion. But I didn't really hear from, what is the alternative? So I'd love to hear that discussion and get some tangible things that we can put into the proposal.
How about residency with a longer window to move here?
Okay.
As the compromise.
Councilor Bacon.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I was going to say that I think, given the market and given the circumstances, that we should consider those. But I more lean to the point that the person should be vested and live here, particularly if we're giving so much power to this position. But I think, given the economic realities, that if we pushed it out to 2 years, and then, depending on circumstances, made it an absolute drop-dead thing by the end of the contract if it stays 3 years. Because what's happening now is, when there is a residency requirement and people are complying, the sort of informal understanding is like a number of people grab an apartment somewhere, but they really still live over here, but they legally establish a residency in the city. I would like it to be more real than that. And I think for it to be more real, they might need to have a little bit more time, because it is a tight market. So that, to me, would seem reasonable, assuming we do this at all.
Thank you. And then I think for me, there could be like a meeting in the middle, right? Whether it's offering more time, whether it's making the contract 5 years and then having them move in before the 3rd or 4th year, whichever one it is. Again, I don't want to make somebody move here, but at the same time, I can't. How are you telling me that you are bought into this community if you're not living here? Is the piece for me, because I live here. I walk the streets on a regular basis. My kids are impacted. Everybody here that's living here is giving, I would say, their all, in a sense, right? To kind of uplift the community. But again, I've budged before, and I've voted in allowing the residency requirement to be more lenient or uplifted. But I guess for me, it's to what end, right? Like how far are we gonna go? But I'm willing to meet in the middle. Whatever, if it means someone 2 or 3 years to move in or whatnot. I just think that when you're paying so much money of taxpayer dollars for a position like this, it would benefit the community if walking down the street, you get to see your CAFO. Walking down the street is your superintendent. Walking down the street is your chief of police. Like, they're living in your communities, and it's a different concept compared to what it was back in the 60s and the 70s when communities were more tighter and more knit. Police officers actually lived in your communities versus some of them living in East Long Meadow or wherever it's at, right? But again, it's what's best for me, in my opinion. Where I would be at is what's best for the city long term. And if it is that someone that is coming from out of town, that is dedicated to the city, that grew up in the city possibly in the past and really knows the history of the city, I'd be open ears to it. But preferably, it really is that I'm here too, right? Like, and I plan to be here as long as I can, as long as I live. But yeah, that's just where I'm at, and I'm willing to listen to whatever is being offered or whatever best practices are being put out in other places. But I just know and I feel that in other communities that are very similar to Holyoke, this is a sign of a struggling community when you start outsourcing jobs to other communities as well. Councilor Bacon.
Thanks. So I guess I would pose a question a different way. As this position is being articulated, it's the second most powerful position in the city. So to me, bottom line, the person should live here. That's it. They're the second highest, as this is laid out. Now, we keep saying they're independent, but let's be clear, they report to the mayor. They do. That person reports to the mayor. And JT, is it TJ or JT?
It's TJ.
Reverse his initials. You know, he said if he and the mayor disagreed, they went in the back room and hashed it out and didn't disagree in public, because at the end of the day, he reported to the mayor. But nonetheless, as described here, a lot of power. Second highest in the city. Live here, in my opinion. But I agree, give them time to get here. But you know, to be fair, but that's how I see it. I mean, we're little guys in the city, and we have to live here.
Correct. On a way less salary. Kelly?
I just wanted to echo I agree someone should be dedicated to the community and live here, but as far as recruitment, it's going to make it hard for us unless we offer someone a sign-on bonus, like a moving bonus. I can't think of the word. Relocation, thank you. A relocation bonus, which I did for several teachers who came from Puerto Rico and came from other places, and they have made Holyoke their home. But without the resources, like we have a department head right now who is afraid to lose their job because they have not found a house. They said, I might have to rent because the house that was probably $120 10 years ago is now $500,000, and not everyone has saved up 20% to do that. So I just want to share that I echo it. Yes, we want them to be dedicated to the community, but as far as recruitment, it's tough.
Rory, and then Patty, and then Coco. Counselor Givner, I'm sorry.
So one technical answer to a question that you had about the extent required by law. So again, I think we're going to run into this a couple of times. In Springfield, there were two things based on our conversations with TJ, who is on, if there are specific questions about some of this. The special act, as we know from some of these previous conversations, the special act that created this by the legislature before they put the Finance Control Board in place, the act itself required residency. In addition to that, Springfield has its own set of residency ordinances. So those two things is what this is referring to, Counselor, as far as the extent required by law. What I'll say just on the topic of residency, I think the fact we're not leading with you must already be a resident is a good place, because that will certainly help. I do think that the way this reads right now, it's like on that 366th day, if you're not a resident, you're gone. I think that's where, like, I think you guys have mentioned it a few times, by the end of the first term, if it's a 3-year term or if it's a longer term within the first 3 years, I really think that is a recipe for success, because that would give somebody enough time. The reality is it's hard, right? I mean, many of us are parents, and we can think about, I'm getting hired for a new job. My son's just about to graduate. Am I going to pull him out of the school system? Or it's a lot easier if there's a window of time to find the house to make it work for your family. So that's just my 2 cents about residency. But I do think that the compromise is right there in front of us.
Thank you, Rory. Councilor Patty Devine.
Just in the queue.
Councilor Devine, just in case you didn't hear me. Okay. And we'll go back to you, Councilor Devine. Councilor Givner?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a lot of feelings about this, but one thing that stands out is the mention of power of this position. And I don't hear a lot about the expertise required in this position. And I think that really needs to take precedence. Of course, I want this position to live in Holyoke. How we figure out how to get that person to live in Holyoke, I'm not sure. But I think in positions like these, if we hire people who are experts in their field, they fix problems in Holyoke that exist that will then attract all kinds of people to live here. Our finances are kind of in a muck, and we've been working on them, and it seems like they're getting a lot better. But the expertise of this position, I think, is more important than the residency, as much as I would like to see this person, the police chief, the fire chief. I want all these positions of power to live in Holyoke. But I also think it's really important that the people in these positions are at the top of their field. That also means that they're improving the city in ways that attracts people to want to live in this city. So I'm not sure how important it is that they live here if they're creating an environment that makes, other people who can fill these positions want to live here. I think it's more important that we run our finances right, we get our house in order, and then everybody will want to live here. The mass exodus from Holyoke has a lot to do with things we haven't taken care of in the last, couple of years. And by couple, I mean 40. But
Decades.
if we can get people in positions who are professionals, who really know what they're doing, know how to point us in the right direction, if we pay them accordingly, we won't have to worry about attracting talent to the city, because the city's house will be in order and everybody will want to live here. I think Holyoke is on the rise, and I think we have to look to the future and think bigger. This position could really open the floodgates for people to want to be here, and all the people who want to be here are who should be here. So I just wanted to mention that. It's not about power. I think it's about expertise. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Devine, one more time.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Great, okay, thank you. This is a tough decision that people have to make. Years ago, I was all in favor of residency, but now when I look at it, picture, say, 300 teachers, and you pick 5 of them, and you say to them, you have to move to Holyoke. Now they have husbands or wives or partners, they have children in whatever schools they live in. They're gonna uproot their families to come to Holyoke to first sell their house if they have a house, then they have to go and buy another house if they can find that house. I just think that the residency is not at the top of my list. It's more the experience, the knowledge, the college that they have. But I just can't see people in this day and age all of a sudden saying, well, I'm not going to go to the bank and get an interest rate of 8%. I'm not going to uproot my family who loves where they live. But that doesn't take away from the job that they've done and how good they are at it just because they may not live here. What if they live in South Hadley? That's like a hop, skip, and a jump from us. That doesn't mean they're not qualified. So I just think that residency, in my opinion, is not top of the list. Thank you.
Councilor Bacon.
So I was going to suggest some language for an amendment, assuming if the committee thinks we should keep residency. If the committee thinks we should, then I would suggest that we say shall become a resident of the city within 2 years, but no later than the end of the first contract term. So they would be put into a 3-year contract. You say by 2 years move in, but no later than the end of your first contract. It would be naturally ending anyway, you know, from a certain perspective, because there's no guarantee your contract gets renewed anyway. You know, and if they're really dedicated to the city, I don't think that's too much of a jump. But that's me, and I would just put that forth as a compromise suggestion. I mean, there's a lot of bigger things in here than that, but nonetheless, we're on that. So
Thank you.
I would offer that as an amendment to the draft, but I'm not hearing a second, so.
I'll second it for
I
discussion.
was going to say, do we hear a second? Second under discussion.
I have a question around if 2 years is the right amount. I'm swayed by all of your arguments. I think all your arguments are correct. It's really hard to, I think, make a decision for me here because I totally agree on the arguments around expertise, fighting the pool, getting the right person. Completely agree. For me, the right person is also someone who knows our community because they live in it. That being said, if we want to establish residency but create more wiggle room, we could approve the amendment that Councilor Bacon has suggested. We could have language around 2 years with a possible extension as approved by the council and mayor.
Right, I was
Could be
saying
another
2 years.
option.
But no later than the end of the 3rd year is what the amendment offered is. It would give them through their first contract to get here, which would be 3 years on the outside, but you want to let them know you want them here by year 2. But you'd give them till year 3, given all the, everything we've talked about.
Now, if I have been offered a job that I know is 3 years, I guess one of my concerns would be if I'm in year 2 now and I'm like, oh, okay, I've got this, like I have 1 year left, I have to move this year. Is my job secure? Like, am I gonna get reappointed? I just wonder about that reality for people, because that's actually coming up on the end of your term. So I do wonder, another option could be, have to move if they extend if they're reappointed into a second term, would be another way of doing it, potentially.
Real quick, am I seeing that the pay rate for this particular position is 115 to 160 within the range?
Well, in the budget, it's 137 because the mid-range, but it's always been discussed at 150.
Yeah, the Schedule A step that it's in, that is the top step. That is the range, but absolutely, we wouldn't be able to hire, no one, well, I won't be, you guys and the mayor won't be able to hire somebody above the mid, obviously, so that's why that's what's in the budget right now.
So if we can't hire someone above the mid, which would be the 135 or the 137, that means we would hire someone within the mid or below it. Do we really, and this is just a question, do we really think we're going to find someone below the 130 or the 120? Even if they didn't want to move to Holyoke? Because my understanding is neighboring communities, they kind of pay a little more than that.
That's a really great question, and again, TJ's on and can speak more directly to this, but we've asked that question because we had similar concerns, and he is somebody that's working with municipalities all across the state and has a pretty good finger on the pulse, feels that for this area, for Western Mass, that is a very competitive salary. It's not too much, it's not too little, it's right where we would want to be.
The 137.
137
budget,
is
right?
very competitive, yes, absolutely, absolutely.
That's what I remember him saying.
Yeah, and quite honestly, I don't think we would, want to go lower than that, right? But you could, but that's where you can't go above it.
All right, TJ, real quick, would you like to expand on that a little bit? Just because Rory just threw you under the bus. Nah, just fine.
No, that's all right. I've been watching, so I see what's going on. I think 137 to 150 is right in the sweet spot for a city the size of Holyoke. And I think you're competing with town managers who make 150 in the Western Mass region. They might, in the smaller communities, no, but in some of the other ones, they're making 130, 135, and that's who you want to attract to Holyoke for your capital position. And I think that puts you in the sweet spot of where you need to be.
And one more question: the town managers you're referring to, do they have residency requirements? Because my understanding, some of the communities do.
Some do, some don't. It all depends on the community and the negotiation of the contract.
Okay. Thank you. Councilor Givner, I see your hand raised. Is that a second time?
Yes, thank you.
You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just curious, so if someone's 3 years in, doing a great job, hasn't found a home, would that be reason to, get rid of them if they're doing a great job? Could we open it up to closer communities? I mean, we have the 8th Ward here, South Hadley. Not that I want someone making that money living elsewhere, but, who's to say that someone who lives close by isn't invested in Holyoke? I mean, I don't know. Could we open it up to other communities and put that in there? Because if you're within a 10-minute commute of City Hall, you could be invested in this community pretty quickly. I think Holyoke sells itself. People love it when they've experienced it. And I just wonder if we're not selling ourselves a little short by saying, if someone doesn't absolutely find a place within 3 years with the housing market, with the interest rates, that we're not able to get a quality candidate. If we have a quality candidate, wouldn't we want to keep them regardless? If they're really turning the city's finances around, I think that would be amazing. So I just wanted to put that out there as, food for thought. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Givner. And what I would say with regards to that, if it were that we hired someone and then they were great and they were super awesome, I would be warm, right? To use the terminology that's used. I would be warm to entertaining some amendments later on down the road, right? But to me, again,
That's it.
Everyone loves to come to Holyoke and enjoy and bask in the ambience. It would be awesome if they all loved to live here. But that's just me, Councilor Magrath-Smith.
Am I allowed to amend an amendment?
I believe so.
You can.
What if we said, failure to become a resident of the city within 2 years of appointment shall automatically cause the position to be declared vacant unless an extension has been granted by city council? It creates enough, wiggle room that the council still can decide. There are unique circumstances. And then people can say, no, residency or die, man. Sorry, you're out. Or they can say, actually, given these very unique circumstances, we will extend for a year, 2 years. Council would have the capacity this is a document that's going to live for a long time. And so I think there has to be enough wiggle room in it for us to do, is right, given the circumstances in front of us and the facts that are in front of us at the time. And then people can use their best judgment to make their decision.
Do I hear a second on that amendment?
I'll second it for purposes of discussion, sure.
On the discussion, Councilor
Yeah,
Bacon,
I was
and then
going
Councilor Patty Devine
To
after.
make the point that we from time to time have amended any number of ordinances in the city. And so that whatever we're doing here is not necessarily permanent. But I don't think that's a bad idea to leave in a process for consideration, in unusual circumstances. However, I will say, I think this is just my opinion, I think that's essentially eliminating the residency requirement, in my opinion. Because anybody can come up with a reason if they don't want to do something that can be sold as to get enough support from 7 out of 13 people, in my view. I mean, I've seen it time and time again. So I think it would probably end up essentially eliminating the residency requirement. I mean, I think it's not a bad idea, but I'd prefer to leave it in with the wiggle room. And I think if somebody's in a 3-year contract, it would be like somebody who ran for office for 2 years or 4 years. When you're in the middle of your term, which 2 years would be past the middle, you have a good idea whether it's going well or whether you're out the door at the end of your contract. I mean, that's usually fairly evident if you're not in deep denial, right? So I think that creates a pretty fair situation. So, I'd second it for purposes of discussion, but I wouldn't support it because I just think it undermines the whole thing. Yeah, that's all.
Councilor Devine?
Yeah, thank you. The other question I would have is, however you do it, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years for residency, and at the end of that term, you have to say to that person, you didn't live in Holyoke, so we have to let you go. So now do we pay their unemployment? This is another thing I think you have to look at. Thanks.
Sorry, if I may. So,
Give me 1 second, Councilor Bacon?
well, they'd be under a 3-year contract, which would be ending, which within the contract would say you have to be living in Holyoke by such and such a date. So that would be their choice to not follow the contract at that point. That would be more like a quit than a fire, because they signed the contract agreeing to move here, and then they didn't do it, so that's their choice. So they're at will, and then they go get another job.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Kelly?
That's my name.
I was going to call you Councilor Curran.
To Patty and to Linda's point, it doesn't matter if they quit or they're at will. They could get unemployment. It's up to the state. Some people have resigned and got unemployment. Some people have been terminated and received unemployment. Unfortunately,
If we fought it, we would win on the contract.
hopefully.
I've been there, but
Well, yeah, I've
Just
been
saying.
there too, that we didn't, and even had someone cuss out the hearing officer and they still were awarded it.
it can
So,
happen. It can happen. It's not a
Interesting.
Yeah, I hear you.
Mayor Garcia?
Good evening, councilors. This is very great. I'm happy to see and hear you guys have this very healthy discussion on such an important matter. And obviously, in my management lens, right, it's the flexibility, finding the person that we can to come in and do the job so we can strengthen internal controls, protect resources, and do what we're all trying to achieve. But also, I'm listening to some great arguments about why this needs to be residency requirements, and I just kind of reflect on some of your ideas and how we can still value the residency requirement, but also find new ways to try to close the deficiencies that are making it limited and difficult for us to land somebody and have them come in. And just so you're aware, like right now, if it's a residency requirement, you get 1 year, and if they are doing a great job, you know, I think of the police chief at the moment, and he's diehard looking. He's asking around, he's asking questions, he's really looking, and he's taking that point very seriously, which is great. Year comes, we'll be in front of you guys, right, saying, hey, what do you guys want to do? Do you want to extend it another year? I think that's going to be a conversation that you have in your own ordinances if you want to. But these great ideas about like, hey, let's residency requirement within the term of your contract, that helps with the argument about time and all that. I think you're right. The incentive to offer to help, and I'm not just thinking about this position. I'm thinking about all other positions. I think that between the more time, so let's say if you have a 3-year contract, it has to be within the 3 years. It gives you that flexibility, and then also the incentive to up and move whatever that dollar amount is. We have to talk about. And I'm a little inspired by that because now I'm thinking, man, what a great idea. If we really want to be serious about those residency requirements, we have other positions that we came here and we changed that requirement. But now I'm thinking, you know, if we did offer, you know, $10,000, $15,000 move-in, whatever you guys debate, that might be the two, what's the word I'm looking for? The two incentives that might encourage somebody to want to navigate the barriers that we're talking about that are making us all concerned. But you know, management lens, you know, the residency requirement. I was a town administrator in town that didn't require, you know, but some other communities do require for many reasons. On your argument, we want people to live in the town, know the town, but understanding the climate. The limitations, if the council was to, you know, agree to have those two incentives in there, that might get you to where you need to be so that we can get an agreement going. That might be the compromise so that we can overcome these barriers we all know exist, but also maintain our true values to making sure that people move into the city if you're going to take a top job like that. Just a thought.
There's a gorgeous property for sale on Rock Valley Road.
FYI.
They got 3 years.
For the chief.
And we might be able to
For
give
the
them.
chief.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
So, go ahead, Councilor Magrath-Smith.
What would we need to, I mean, we can of course file a different order on that conversation, but I think it's interesting, and I wonder what this process would have to be to create some sort of standardized system where if there is a residency requirement and someone is moving from another community, here is what HR could be empowered to offer as an incentive, and structure it around like, and you get it with like when you move. Like it doesn't come at the beginning. It comes after like, here's the purchase and sale agreement on this home. Great. And now here's your incentive, to help you relocate. I think that could be interesting. I'm just saying these things out loud because let's be thoughtful.
I understand.
About how
You
we
all
structure
sound like
them.
you haven't looked for a house in a really long time, is all I'm
We
saying.
also sound like we have a huge slush fund for moving expenses.
I know. I know.
Not in this reality.
It's the other challenge.
No.
Have it.
But also, it's like those push and pull factors, right? Of
But it would-
we can
Defined.
you can support someone to do something, you can impel someone to do something. Often you have to do both in order to actually make something occur. And I hear the pushback on having the wiggle room because you're right, it could make it toothless. Not that council couldn't at any point, of course, change it or decide not to take up an issue. We've seen that happen where certain, positions are sort of allowed to suddenly not become, we might know something and not follow it up, right? So there's that too. I would much prefer us to have a system that is rigid enough to get what we want, but has enough wiggle room that we can actually, be honest in the room about what we're doing and how we're doing it. I like the idea of having the unless extension has been granted by city council. I'm also hearing, though that may not be supported, I'm also hearing it may not be 2 years, but within the term. which is 3. I don't know if we've hit consensus yet on which one there's enough
So I'd like
support
to
for.
offer an amendment to the amendment.
To the amendment.
So then we'll have
That's the
3
third
on the
amendment
table.
right now. 'Cause
So
if that
then-
one fails, then I gotta go to this one. If that one fails, then I gotta go to that one.
Right.
So go ahead.
So-
I'm just trying to keep track in the head.
Yeah, so the amendment to the amendment would be that the person would, and we're not saying they have to buy a house. We're saying they have to be a resident of the city.
Buy a condo.
They don't have to buy anything if they don't want to. They can live at Devonshire. But anyway, so the amendment to the amendment would be, shall become a resident by no later than the end of their first contract term. And here's the thing, they're already going to be negotiating their second contract in their 3rd year. So they either are or they're not, because that's going to start at the beginning of the 3rd year for anybody who's serious. And then you could add in that the city council may amend, but you just have to amend it through an ordinance change. That's all. I mean, but it should be an ordinance change if you're going to change it, because otherwise it just becomes too easy to just become a political football.
Okay.
Which I don't think is healthy. So that would be my amendment I'd offer to make
I'll
it go
second
all the
the
way to
amendment.
the end.
Can you repeat that again, just in case, because there's a lot going on right now.
No later than the end of their
Shall
contract
become
term.
a resident of the city no later than the end of the first contract. I don't know if term is the correct word, but
I think so. I'll second that.
Under discussion,
yeah.
Councilor Murphy-Romboletti. You raised your hand.
No, I didn't. I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, my bad. So,
I'm fine with the amendment, so whenever you guys want to vote on it, I don't have anything else to add.
on the motion, who's voting is us,
Mm-hmm.
Councilor Bacon, Councilor Magrath-Smith, and myself, correct?
Yeah, that's it. Aye.
On the motion, yes. I'm losing my terminology. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Maggie.
I think that we can just do a voice vote because we almost always have somebody
not
on
on
Zoom.
Zoom.
Okay, perfect.
So we're
Because
just-
we're not, no one's
No,
on Zoom.
you're right. I
We
just
can
lost
just
my,
do a voice
my
vote.
train of
we're
thought.
regular
Right. No,
ones.
listen. I've been
Which
on
feels
a
irregular.
healthy mindset for the last week and a half, so things are not where they're supposed to be right now. So on the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. No one opposed. So we move on to the next.
Okay. My next one is very tiny. It's on page 18.
We're still on 6, right?
So page 18, it just says, with his office or employment, and everywhere else, we've made it
The
more
office.
neutral. So if we could make it
The
with the office would be great. That's just sort of a Scrivener's piece. Thank you, Jeffrey. And then
Where are you pointing to? I'm sorry.
You said
page 18, under subject to the city charter and ordinances, it says act or thing connected with his office or employment. If we could change that to the office or employment.
All right. Is it 2-10?
It's XV11, subject to the city. On page 18
It's under,
of 20.
it's 2-315,
2-315.
and then down to that, the second subheader there, subject to the city charter and ordinances.
Okay. Just 3.
Page 18.
Sorry, Jeffrey.
his.
But also my-
I don't think he
There it
can
is.
see the.
It's right there, XV11, subject to the city.
Yep, right at the end of that one,
last full line.
or it says his office or employment, the last line there. Just the.
Yeah.
Yeah, right there.
Thank you. And then another sort of, I think it's just something that got left in, page 23. And that would be underneath 2-113. It's my page 23.
Just a friendly suggestion, don't forget, all of that is being deleted. The section you're about, I think, to
Oh,
revise, that's being all stricken anyways, isn't it?
No, this is assistant,
I didn't think so.
this is treasurer.
Counselor Jordan is correct. I think what happened, because I reviewed this, Counselor, and whether it was you or Counselor Vacan, because I know it was filed under both your names,
Oh, it's striking.
went through and did like
Got
an
it.
autocorrect.
Right.
And it
Got
did,
it.
because that tripped me up the first time I read
Yeah.
through
Yes.
it too. But you are absolutely correct. That would be deleted and then replaced by the following section.
Right.
Which
Right.
starts at 2-101.
So I didn't red
Okay.
line delete it, but I
It's
just.
gone because the whole thing was.
It's gone, yeah,
Got it.
exactly.
Yeah.
21 through 23 is all good, that whole
Yeah.
section's getting
Yeah.
deleted anyways.
Okay, great.
Awesome.
Then we're good there. The qualifications, I think, where are the qualifications for the tax collector / treasurer?
Let's,
Because I think I was looking at where it was redacted and I was concerned that they weren't
it's on page 23,
aligned.
starting in section 1.
Oh, okay.
D.
Are we happy with those? Because that's a specific item in our agenda too. So it says under D, the person appointed treasurer collector shall be a graduate of an accredited college or university. This is 2101. With a degree in accounting, public administration, or business administration. I didn't know if we wanted to add like or related field. Although I guess the next section does make it
Broader.
enough, generic enough, or especially suited by education, training and experience to perform the duties of the office. And then E, the treasurer collector shall obtain and maintain certification from the Massachusetts Treasurer and Collector Association. I think in the job description that we talked about, we specified that it had to be within 36 months.
Okay.
And so I didn't know if we needed to add that here, or if it
Within
was.
36
But
months.
there was an earlier version that said 18, so I was wondering
Oh.
why it got changed to 3 years.
That's a Kelly question.
I can
Or a
actually
Rory question.
explain. It got changed because in order to get certified by the Mass Treasurers Collectors Association,
Yeah.
assuming you have no certification, it takes 3 years. You can't get it any sooner than that.
Oh,
It's a very regimented course that there are schools throughout the year that you have to take. And it is a 3-year program. So that's why we changed it to 36 months.
Counselor Bacon.
So what I would like to say then is that the educational requirement could be waived if the person has the certification. That to me would be a
Under their way.
reasonable trade-off, because if somebody can walk in the door with the certification, I don't really care about their degree. But if they have to get the certification, then I care more.
Yep.
You know, I want some evidence that they were able to, whatever. I don't-
So do we need to amend it in order to
That-
say within 36 months in E?
Yes.
Okay. Jeffrey, can we do that, please?
And to
Mayor
get the
Garcia?
certification, you got to be in the job, right? You can't get certification without being in a job, I'm assuming?
I'll
Correct.
second
Yeah.
that motion. I think we have
So
to
that comes
amend
with
it in here.
experience.
If we want to add 36.
Okay,
So
yes.
I'll second that if that's a motion.
Yes, please. All right, so the motion on the table is that we add within 36 months to the end of E,
Right.
and it's been seconded.
Yeah.
You wanna have us vote on it?
Yes, under discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So can I suggest an amendment under D?
Sure, Counselor Bacon.
That if an applicant, let's see, person appointed shall be a graduate with a degree in da-da-da-da-da. I'd like to end it, or related field, but keep the degree in, and say, if a person has the Mass Treasurers and Collector Association certification, the requirement for a degree may be waived. Because they're already proving they can do the job, even if they don't have a degree, right?
D doesn't require a degree though,
Yeah, it doesn't.
because the or says you
And-
can.
Well, I'm suggesting that we would end it at the end of a degree and not have the or, but that we would make an exemption if they have that certification, that then they wouldn't need a degree.
Real quick, Counselor Bacon.
Yeah.
because I was gonna say the same thing about experience.
Yeah.
Just because if, let's say, you were a treasurer in another community, and for some reason you were coming over to this community, and you were gonna move or whatnot, that kind of speaks to the experience piece, and it speaks to that certification piece, and that last piece where it says "and experience to perform the duties of the office,"
Yeah.
in my opinion, kind of covers that. So, are you asking to like add more to that?
Well, I was just not wanting to get rid of the financial degree requirement for a finance job. But
I think the
if it's the will
requirement-
of the committee, it's just, we keep saying we have to strengthen our finance department. But then we keep taking every job, and then we keep making it vague as to what qualifications a person has to have to fill the job. Now, I'm not against having things be flexible enough that if you have like a really good person that you know could do the job. But on the other hand, the qualifications and the criteria for the job should be what we need for the job, right?
Yes.
So that's where I'm coming from.
No, I don't. I see where you're coming from. I just, and again, we can add it. We could entertain the amendment and do the vote. I kind of feel like it kind of covers that already.
Okay.
In a sense.
Okay, well,
Because in the
he
beginning.
covers it because they have to get it. I'm saying give the person extra credit if they come in the door with it. And if they come in the door, hey, I'm a certified person from the Treasurers and Collector Association, but I don't have a degree, that we could still consider them. But I don't like opening up the door to say, you have to have a degree, or you can be whatever I think today be okay to be the treasurer, and that's okay because I'm gonna say whatever it is, whoever has, is enough education, training, and experience, all by itself with no
So you're being
parameters.
So what you're saying is to be more specific in a sense, right? Instead of coming in and saying I was a CFO at a large corporation, but I don't have that certification and I don't have a degree, that's not good enough.
Right,
Is what you're saying.
right.
Okay.
We've just had situations, there's any number of people who could say they were a treasurer for a city. That didn't mean it went well. Just saying.
I don't disagree. I would hope.
We've had a few.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
Experience in and of itself doesn't translate into successful. And anyway.
No, thank you. And I'm not, again, with all due respect, it's not for the sake of argument or anything like that. I just want to make sure that we're being clear in what you're requesting. Real quick, Councilor Magrath-Smith is requesting just to see if Kelly can kind of speak on the language, like if it sounds, the degree and the certification piece added in.
Yeah, I don't have it up, but I do agree that.
It's over there, just in case.
Thank you.
We got you. We're almost efficient.
So I heard the conversation, but I do agree that a degree is, wanted, but also I've met people who are way smarter than people with degrees and that have the
acumen,
knowledge and skills to do the jobs, without degrees.
Okay. All right. So the amendment was to add in to E, right? That's what you're saying?
Oh, I think we already voted on the 36 months for E.
No, I'm
For E.
yeah.
I mean D.
D, then my bad.
Yeah.
So for D is to add in the language that you just said around the certification.
Well, I guess I'm hearing that if people don't want to take out leaving it wide open, then there's really no need to add that in, because then the person hiring the person can say, oh, you got the certification, good, that comes under
Right.
training. or you know what I mean? It would be in the catch-all. But I was just trying to make, I don't know, to me, this is so anybody could get appointed to this job under this eligibility criteria.
But
I don't think I could.
They have to be
You don't?
confirmed. You know, they have to be appointed and
might.
confirmed and approved.
You might be able to.
Counselor Murphy-Romboletti, and then Rory, I saw your hand up real quick.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to see what TJ had to say, to be honest. I mean, this isn't my, I don't know. So that was the only thing, but Rory.
So Rory
for
and then TJ.
Sorry.
No, totally fine. All I was going to say is I think a degree is important. I think that is what has been talked about. I don't, and I understand your point about the way this language is constructed right now. The only thing I would add is that there are people who have held treasurer positions that have master's level finance degrees that haven't performed well.
True.
And there are people who might have, and I'm going to point to our tax collector right now, okay? We have somebody in our tax collector's office whose degree is actually in Homeland Security. Her experience prior to ending up working at the Registry of Deeds and then ultimately being appointed by this council to the tax collector was doing security for Virgin Airlines, corporate security for Virgin
At
Airlines.
the time we appointed her, she was doing budget.
She was doing, she worked for the Registry of Deeds. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But my point is that she had a degree. She came from a non-traditional kind of background in that field, and now she's excelling in this and has gone on and has gotten the MCTA certification. So I think that to thread the needle, to say that the person shall be a graduate of an accredited college, university with a degree in accounting, public administration, or business administration, or a combination of a different, I wouldn't say different degree, but a 4-year degree and relevant experience would give the council the wiggle room to review. Personnel is not going to just automatically weed out people because, your degree was in history and or in computer science but you have a business administration degree. But I do feel, and this is coming from me right now, who doesn't have, I don't, as you all know, a 4-year degree. I do see the value in it, and I think you can play it multiple ways. So I wouldn't want to see you lose that piece, because that's what's been talked about to the voters. I've talked about that to the voters.
Right.
We all have. And enough said.
Oh, okay.
And then real quick, let me get TJ to opine real quick, and then
So definitely, I agree with what everyone's saying. Is you don't want to rule out candidates that may be non-traditional. You want the experience, you want the a level of ability. I'll say even here in Springfield, we have an acting treasurer collector. I don't think she has a degree, and she's fantastic at her job. And she's one of the best we've seen, and it's one of those, she's probably ripe to be the next treasurer collector of Springfield. And so I think you don't want to limit yourself if you find talent, because right now it is so hard to find talent for any job, whether it's CFO or a CAFO or a school CFO. They are so hard to come by these days. You don't want to limit that.
Thank you, Councilor Reagan.
So what I wanted to do was sort of take a little bit of what Rory said. Instead of just saying, or especially suited by education, training, and experience to perform the duties of the office, to say, under special circumstances, relevant education, training, experience, and certification within that arena could be considered in lieu of the degree. So it's making it specific to the job, in my mind. And it's saying, in a little different words, kind of what Rory just said, I think. Am I, Rory, saying what you said?
You are.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. Yeah.
So if the committee's warm to that, I don't want to shut the door, but I do want to keep it on the topic. So that would be my motion to amend, to stop after the listed degrees and substitute for or especially suited by ... to, under special circumstances, relevant education, training, and experience, or education, not training, experience and certification by the Mass Association could be accepted in lieu of a degree.
I hear a second. I'll second that on the discussion.
It's keeping the door open. It's just saying it a little differently.
If there's nothing else to be said then on the motion?
I'm just like honestly waiting. I think Jeffrey was typing it.
Okay.
Oh,
you want to see it? Okay. Yeah.
Having a hard time
Yeah,
holding on to
now
it.
I'm with you. I'm with you. I'm with
No, I
you.
like to see it too.
Well, Vice Chair, can you take over for a second? Can I get a coffee
Oh,
while they type in?
I think maybe, do you want to help Jeffrey a little more?
oh, I can't.
While y'all do that, I am going to get a coffee.
Yes.
Go
looking
for it.
coffee.
One more time, under special circumstances,
So, under special circumstances, relevant education, experience, and certification by the Mass Treasurer and Collector Association can be accepted in lieu of a degree.
Yes. Now that I'm seeing it, yes, I'm fine. with it. Sorry, I couldn't hold
I'm just being more specific to the job rather than generic, that's all.
The reality is, I mean, if the type of candidate that you would get in that scenario, to the mayor's point, is somebody who, if they didn't have a degree, they have the MCTA certification.
Well-
That meant they were a treasurer collector in another community. They probably have experience. It could be somebody that moved to Holyoke and is just looking for a new job at the end of
Right,
their
and
career.
just understand, I'm just
Yeah.
looking at this like textbook.
No, it's great.
I'm looking at it generic. I'm not
Yeah.
looking at it like who has something or who doesn't,
Yeah,
because I don't
yeah.
even know.
Yeah.
Do you want to on the motion?
Oh, we need Izzy. Oh, no, I guess we don't.
you're the vice
So on the motion, all in favor, as documented
Aye.
on the board?
Mm-hmm.
Aye.
Okay. Okay, my next thing is really everything else in this document. I've gone through, I have scribbled across every page, and I've talked through it with folks who made different changes to understand why, why is it coming in that way? What is the change? Almost everything in this document, other than the things I just named, I feel totally fine with. I understand removing IT. I understand this concept of there being maybe a phase 2. I agree that some things need more study. The thing that I have the most questions and concerns about are the edits around the law department, just because it's so new to me and I haven't really thought through what the implications are of it. And I don't, so I would need to really talk it out to understand what changes are being made, why, how, and I know we also have the memo from Lisa Ball, who is our city solicitor.
Did that get printed out, by the way?
Yes, here.
Oh, okay.
So sorry. Thank you. So it says,
Did my best on my phone to read it.
Dear councilors, I apologize I'm unable to attend the joint meeting of the Charter and Ordinance Committees this evening, as I recognize the discussion of a proposed finance department is of utmost importance. I had the chance to read the draft ordinance and also to speak to Councilor Jourdain, along with Attorney Bissonnette and Attorney Degnan, to discuss Councilor Jourdain's suggested changes to the proposed ordinance to establish the Department of Administration and Finance. Many of the proposed edits make perfect sense, and we will propose the council adopt these suggestions. Attorney Degnan and Attorney Bissonnette will be prepared to address these edits. We all agreed that there were some strike-throughs that needed additional discussion. There was also discussion about some additions to the ordinance that I would suggest be considered as phase 2 of this ordinance. One change I would suggest could be implemented now is the following. This would be sort of her proposal for section 292, 3J.
What page is that on?
I don't know, and also the numbers didn't quite seem to line up for me, which was one of the issues.
Yeah.
On mine, Kevin, it's not page
10?
For mine, it's underneath,
11.
section 138.
Okay.
So just, I wasn't sure why the numbers were so significantly different. But it says here, the CAFO shall work in conjunction with the city solicitor and the city's labor council to support all collective bargaining sessions with the unions in the city, excluding all school department unions. The CAFO shall cost out every bargaining proposal for both sides to determine if proposals are sustainable. Before any agreement is reached between the city and any city union, there must be consent of the CAFO before the mayor shall be allowed to agree to the proposal. The CAFO is expected to attend all city council meetings and committee meetings to explain their reasoning for supporting a final proposal. No agreement will be considered to have final approval until a vote of the city council approving the financial transfer needed for any agreement. The wording of the currently proposed language in 137, 138, 151, 156, and 159 would be in conflict with the charter, which states, under section 39, the city solicitor shall perform all legal services in which the city is interested and attend to all proceedings at law and in equity to which the city is a party, and to all claims made to the city council. For these purposes, he shall have sole charge of all such matters and proceedings. He shall give in writing his legal opinion upon any of the municipal affairs of the city upon the request of the mayor or city council, and in addition shall give his opinion upon the law relating to municipal affairs in any department, upon request made by the head of such department. These sections warrant further discussion, and I look forward to working with council regarding any suggested changes. Sections 137, any reference to a legal counsel to the city council would be in conflict with the charter. 138 is in conflict with the charter. Sections 151, 156, and 159, many of these changes proposed changes are in conflict with the city charter. That's not to say the council should not have additional conversations about possible changes to the law department if that's what's in the best interest of the city. Some changes may make sense to implement in the future, but are probably not worth putting into ordinance now, in our opinion. The most important thing to focus on is the treasurer collector, the proposed financial officers, and the structure of that department. I do truly believe this ordinance is going to make a big difference in how the city's financial departments will function. As you all know, it is a common practice to amend our ordinances, particularly ones with this amount of importance. I see this ordinance as a work in progress, but also one which needs to be adopted. There has been much work and thought put into this proposal, and it will put the city in the best possible position for future success. And we just received that today. So again,
Very late.
so just thinking through what this means, right, and her response to this.
Can you find the section in our draft? Because
Yeah.
I'm-
Put those in the right spot, yeah.
I want to make sure I'm looking at the right language, because the reason for some of this language is because the CAFO, which I want to see it,
Oh, I think.
the words with my eyes,
It's on
is
page 13 of the one
is
that was printed.
responsible for all of the contracts as the CAFO.
Right.
So the CAFO cannot be put in a subsidiary or a consultative relationship with another department if at the end of the day, that position is responsible. It creates a total gray area of mess. That's my opinion. You have to have lines of accountability, lines of authority, not dotted lines all over the place. And, you know, quite frankly, I mean, if we're going to go this way, we need somebody who is not going to be affected by contracts that they're negotiating, in my opinion.
You had asked what the language, and I just heard Jordan say it as I was
Is
saying
it 13?
It's on page 13 at the top. It's section J.
So am I remembering that correctly, that the CAFO is responsible for all the contracts?
Correct.
So
Collective
how-
bargaining negotiations,
Right,
labor,
so
employment.
if that responsibility is there, then that person would have to have the resources to do it.
They also oversee personnel.
Council Jordan.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, so basically, there's, like I said, as I discussed, I touched on it early on, was the sort of the two roles was, one, if the CAFO is really going to be the detached, apolitical figure that is gonna bring, agent of change to Holyoke, one of the most obvious agents of change needed is gonna be over collective bargaining agreements. I'm of the opinion some of this stuff is unsustainable long-term too, and you know, whatever one's political opinion is on it, I mean, the realities are we have some addressing to do with this going forward, and some of these terms in these agreements are way out of whack from either the city, apparently past mayors or what have you, made the decision that maybe I couldn't give you enough money, so I'm going to give you more benefits, or I'm going to give you more this or more that. Well, this stuff has had a compounding effect over quite a number of years. And to me, when I look at the process of how collective bargaining worked historically, it's basically this, that the law department, in conjunction with the mayor, would negotiate these contracts. And we've had outside counsel from time immemorial involved. But at the end of the day, the mayors have all signed off on, many mayors, not just the current mayor, many mayors on these contracts. And the mayor at the end of the day is a political animal, right? They're elected just like the council is a political animal. And so political pressure is brought to bear. And one could argue over the years, you know, it isn't just coincidence that certain groups of, you know, of union members are standing out holding signs or is buddies with the mayor, or, and all of a sudden all these provisions go rolling into this. And it's really this sort of Tammany Hall mob boss effect that has gone on for years and years and years. And this is just the way politics works in American cities. It's just, you know, it's not unique to Holyoke. This is just the way it is. So the point is that hopefully this CAFO is going to address hard conversations that we're going to have about what the city can afford, what the city cannot afford, okay? And I think this model that we're trying to create creates a less political model, right? Because it puts a layer between the mayor and the collective bargaining agreements. He ultimately or she ultimately has to approve, but at least that person can say, well, you know, the CAFO said, you know, we got to do this and this, and, you know, yeah, that was a tough negotiation. I only have so much control because CAFO, you know, and if the CAFO says, hey, look, everybody, this is all bullshit, right? I wanted to cut them to this, and the mayor didn't back me up and said, no, I'm giving them blah, 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 and you do this and this. At least the CAFO can then report that to the council, and then we can say, well, not subject to, you know, these things are all subject to appropriation, and we don't vote for it, right? At least there's somebody there who's not a political animal besides us and the mayor, right? This to me is a shortcoming of our process as opposed to the people. It's systematic. Like, if you ultimately get to the mayor politically, you get what you want in these contracts. And this has been happening for decades. Okay. So having said that, I think this is a positive that comes out of the CAFO process. In order for the CAFO to really do the job, he or she must have direct control over the person who's negotiating the contracts, which in our model, unless we come up with a different model, has been retained outside counsel, okay? So keeping that under the law department and the CAFO not actually overseeing and controlling the negotiator, I think is a material weakness in the system that I'm trying to correct. And so, law department, by all means, give advice, give the CAFO input. You know, I'm willing to, you know, work with what the law department, a lot of what Lisa's saying here makes a lot of sense, and make these suggestions, and we can perhaps incorporate that. But at the end of the day, I think that job should be under the CAFO, and the CAFO should be doing the negotiations, and the law department doing employment law stuff. Like I mentioned earlier, employee disputes, terminations, you know, helping the CAFO to oversee a lot of these things, but the negotiation process. And then, you know, hopefully the mayor will go along with what the CAFO recommends for these negotiations. And so that's the theory behind that piece. As far as the second piece goes, about the legal counsel to the city council. Again, this position I see expanding beyond just being legal counsel to the city council, legal support to the director of internal audit, okay? This person has to have their own legal support to do their job, to actually oversee and provide direct oversight to the departments that's independent and can be the proverbial whistleblower if needed. Working with our outside auditors and all these other people, they need legal support. To me, it's another material weakness if the law departments is appointing the legal advisor to the city council and being the sole source. That's like 1800s. That section 39 should be revised. I agree with the law department. It should no longer read that the city solicitor shall perform all legal services that the city is interested in. These words all should come out of here, just as I suggested it in the ordinance. It doesn't have to be, and what I've seen as a weakness in our system is nobody basically blows their nose in here without checking in with the law department and them saying everything is okay, all right? But that goes from legal advice to policy advice. And that is the quickest way to like shut down everything in government if the law department doesn't approve. That will still basically be here, but these, as it relates to the legal advisor to the city council and internal auditor, that will be independent, selected here. And if these things have a conflict, we're going to eliminate these conflicts of interest that currently exist. And so I think it really solves two major problems that we have: collective bargaining and independent review here at the council and at the internal audit position. Probably only need a part-time position in both as it's currently structured today. The legal advisor to the city council is a part-time position and the RUS position is a part-time position. I don't see why that would have to change. So I think it's financially neutral. And then let the law department do the gazillion other things that they do, which is everything else, which is vast, you know. And they're still there as a added support and advice. So that's what I would say on that. And as far as if we need to tweak Section 39 of the charter, I think it really would be just taking out the words all. Like, it doesn't have to be that if the city solicitor is concerned that everything has to be done by the city solicitor, the omnipotent city solicitor. I don't think that's been a great model. And in most of corporate America, that is also not the model. You have people who are, I can even think of my own corporation that I'm in, is like people specialize in certain areas. This division has these sections of lawyers that do this, and this section over here has lawyers that do this, and these people do employment. We have all these specialized areas. So I don't think that's really, a problem anymore. I think in the old days when the city created this charter, in 1896, we were a much different community, and you probably had 1, 2, 3 lawyers, and they probably did everything and washed the pots and pans. I don't think it has to be that way anymore. So this model kind of pulls these two conflicted areas out. Thank you.
So real quick for clarification, because I'm not going to lie to you, this is all going in circles to me. What we're saying here is currently negotiation, bargaining power, all that stuff is under the city solicitor's office. And people correct me if I'm wrong, because I probably am. And what we're saying is if the CAFO comes in, that hopefully the CAFO has someone representing them or working in collaboration with them that is autonomous to the city solicitor's office, but is lawyer in negotiating and doing all the work that kind of is already being done through the city solicitor's office. Is that what I'm hearing right now?
Pretty much, except instead of that person reporting directly to the city solicitor who reports to the mayor,
They would
have
report
it
to the
that this
CAFO who
person
reports to the mayor.
CAFO who reports to the mayor. But again, the hope is that the CAFO is being this more apolitical, professional person. Because if this person's just a hack of the mayor anyways, we've kind of like, what are we even doing here? The hope is that the CAFO is this expert who, is going to, really involve these collective bargaining negotiations and stuff.
Yeah, and I asked that because it's a lot of jargon. It's a lot of stuff that comes in and out of my head right now, and it's convoluting things. And if I would say that if it's happening to me, and I work here day to day, and well, not day to day, but I'm on the council. I'm kind of in the thick of it. I'm sure people that are watching at home are probably like, "What are they talking about right now?"
Right.
So for me, it's like, can we try to talk in some layman's terms right now and summarize it in a way where it makes sense to the people that are listening on TV, and to me too. I'm listening. It makes sense, but at the same time, there's a lot going on, and I want to make sure that because I've sat in meetings, and I think it was TJ that was saying when in Springfield, if they don't agree, he had the power to be able to say no, right off the rip. And what I'm hearing is something very similar, except that it's kind of stripping a little bit of, I don't want to say stripping, all right. It's restructuring things so that there is more space for the CAFO to have a little independence, and then allowing for the current city solicitor's office to kind of focus more on other things within the community that are also imperative. But before I recognize Meg and Councilor Bacon and Councilor Murphy-Romboletti, I saw Rory's hand up, and I'm sure you wanted to clarify something, so feel free to clarify. And then I wanted to ask TJ if I'm on point with what I'm assuming, right? And if that's something that is common practice in other communities too as well.
Yeah, actually, so I was going to suggest that we have TJ talk about this, but I did have a clarifying question for Councilor Jourdain. So, and maybe just so, because just how things work now, setting aside the collective bargaining piece, because right now, I know for a fact, because I've had to speak with him about some personnel issues, the labor attorney that we use doesn't just work on collective bargaining. Some of the other scenarios that you mentioned that the law department would still continue to need to work on, regular kind of day-to-day employment, contentious workers' comp claim. We actually have a workers' comp attorney that does help with some of that, but that those types of items would be handled by the law department. So, just kind of clarifying how you envision that. And before you answer that, just to say that I think what you're looking for to take the politics out of this, and what Councilor Rivera just mentioned, what Solicitor Ball put in her memo here as far as, kind of this language, like, can we move, this is something that we can move forward now, I think does accomplish that, because at the end of the day, right now, it lives with the mayor, right? That final step before it would get to the council for, the approval, it lives with the mayor and just under law, where this suggested ordinance takes that away from the mayor and actually gives it to the CAFO, that the mayor still would have to execute contracts, but the mayor wouldn't even be presented with that if the CAFO didn't first sign off on that. So
that's the suggested revision.
That's exactly right. That's what Solicitor Ball has in her memo.
Right, which I'm cold as ice on that. But anyway, just me.
I apologize. I thought that's what you guys were looking for. That the CAFO would be the final say on these contracts, and it wouldn't be the mayor.
We are, but that is not how I read that.
Okay. I think we should clarify that, because that is the intention of this, is exactly that the mayor wouldn't be, the political pressure that Councilor Jourdain mentioned, that, you know, some union comes up and says, I'm going to picket your fundraiser if you don't give me 5%, and the mayor goes ahead and does it anyway, that this language would address that. And I believe this was crafted in consultation with TJ to get to that point, so I would.
TJ.
I don't know, we just got it at
wait.
20
Oh, of course,
five.
of course, of
All right.
course,
And
yeah.
if I,
Yes, but let TJ
Yes.
expand, and then I'll recognize Megan. I got you. I got an order here. Thank you.
Sure. So, the big thing about all this is just, what is the CAFO's role in sustainability? And sustainability is what can Holyoke afford? So if it's 4.2s and that's the authority that is given by the council, by the mayor, by whomever, and you're negotiating that because that's what Holyoke can afford, or if it's 3.5s or whatever, like
There's 4 2s and
CAFO's
3
job-
5s, just to be sure. Okay. All right.
I'm not suggesting that.
No, I'm just saying, like, again, I said, let's try to do layman's terms here for people that are at home and myself, because we're talking
Okay,
jargon
yeah.
that I'm almost done.
All right. We all speak a different language now that we've been in these jobs for a long time. No, but really it comes down to the CAFO's ability to do the analysis based on the authority. And does the CAFO need to be at the table every time they go to main negotiations? No. But does the CAFO need to analyze every proposal and every offer that comes across the table? Absolutely. And so the mayor and the council knows what this is going to cost. So the mayor might execute it, and they might come to the council, and you all may say as a group, nope, we're not doing this, or yep, we're doing it. And that's really how it's supposed to work, is the individual, the ability to be independent and do the analysis and offer recommendations and say, hey, we can only afford a contract that has 2% increase every year, or maybe a little bit more, or what you want to buy out of that contract. And that's really what it comes down to. And everything should be priced out. So there is not a shock or a concern. Like, it should come to the council with a full mapped out, here's what each year is going to cost for all of the different unions that are coming before the council for ratification.
I think for me, real quick, before I recognize others, just the division of labor piece, right? In your experience, because it sounds like it's a division of labor thing that I'm hearing being brought up, right? Where right now, currently, it's the city solicitor that is in helping out with the negotiations or doing the negotiations. But what I'm hearing is we're trying to divide that labor with another, or put in someone that would work specifically aligned with the CAFO to do that. I guess what I'm asking is, if in your experience, is that common practice, or you've seen that before, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Excellent question. In most communities, it honestly is the city solicitor, because they're small enough where the city solicitor might hire outside counsel. In larger communities, they're going to have a labor relations attorney that's either on retainer and or on staff. And it just really comes down to, what does it need to look like for Holyoke? And what does it need to look like? Is the city solicitor, because they're the lead attorney in the city, are they just going to negotiate everything, or are they going to let outside counsel do it, or are they going to hire somebody? But the bargaining strategy has to come from the CAFO and the mayor. So and again, it goes back to the sustainability piece. And that's really what it comes down to. And it just, and that's where, like, just me personally, I barely went to the bargaining table because they want the CAFO to answer yes or no right at the table. And there are so many times you can't say yes or no. You got to go back and analyze everything.
All right.
And that may or may not work for Holyoke, but if you want the CAFO at the table every time, that's kind of a different conversation. And I only say that because when you're the bottom line, yes or no, it is hard to walk out of a bargaining room at the table, the bargaining table, with like not saying yes and not saying no. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. Thank you. Councilor Magrath-Smith?
Thank you. So I read the original, I'm looking at the original language as proposed here from Councilor Jordan versus the city solicitor.
And what page is that on? Just
13.
13. So it, to me, looks like we have a proposal to remove the proposed language from Jordan and instead insert this new language from the city solicitor. In general, I understand where it's going. And I understand where Councilor Jordan is going, but I have my own concerns around, I know, again, maybe it's Pollyanna-ish, but the goal of a law department is for it to serve the whole city, objectively, and to give unbiased legal advice. And I worry about the concept of having a separate person that is only hired by a city council appointee to serve city council, to give legal advice to the council, and gaming out what I think the impacts of that could be. You could end up having these dual legal opinions where the city council is saying, well, our council gave us this opinion that says this, and then the city's legal opinion saying something different, and then whose are we going to say we're fault? It's just like it becomes this bizarre twilight zone, I think, of creating turfs through like, well, this is our lawyer, this is your lawyer. I think the goal is that the city solicitor is supposed to be all of our lawyer. I mean, that's what it says in our charter. So if it's not functioning, is there something else to do in order to make it function in the way that it's supposed to, versus sort of abandoning the concept that they can be a good city solicitor for everyone in the city, including us, because we are the city, right? We're all city employees in this room. Is there some other structure that needs to happen? Maybe the ways that the city solicitor is one who's currently appointing all the solicitors underneath them, right? And they're the ones deciding and assigning the duties. So is it that we have to bring the city solicitor in front of us and have an honest conversation around, like, here are the ways in which this is working or not working in our opinion? Can you walk us through how duties are being assigned? Can you walk us through why this is happening so that we can better understand it? Because right now, the whole point is to create independence in the city solicitor so that they do that. Well, in our current system, it's the city solicitor who appoints the solicitors underneath them and assigns duties. The goal is to create their own independence. Like, again, it's like checks and balances. It's the judicial branch. And I know they're underneath the mayor's office in the sense that everything in city municipal government is other than city council, right? But
we only have legislative and executive. We don't have judicial.
But the goal of how those positions are structured, and even our charter says it, is to try to also create them as another group with independence. Sometimes legal opinions work in our favor, despite something else that, someone else in the government doesn't want to happen. Sometimes it doesn't. But the goal is that they're supposed to be an independent, objective body that all of the city government can go to. And their word is like the final stop. And that's how it's supposed to work.
Change their mind.
And we've all had those moments, right? I don't think anyone in this room has ever been 100% really happy with everything that's come out of the law department. No one. I'm not here arguing that. But I do think that is the goal here of the charter, is to support an independent, unbiased, objective group that serves the whole city. I do worry about trying to create like an actual codified division and be like, no, those people don't serve us. We're giving up any sense of objectivity or the sense that they are supporting the whole city and saying they're not. They're not supporting council. Council has their own attorney. I do wonder if there's a middle road. Last night when the mayor was giving their presentation in the budget hearing, there was a discussion around those like contracted services and, different services reports, things that are sometimes reached out for experts. Do we create a line in the budget instead of cutting that, in the way that we talked about? Do we actually kind of shift the meaning of that line, or pull some of the funding we're going to cut into a different line where like council has the capacity to reach out for outside counsel? Do we do that? And then the council can decide as a group, maybe.
On a tangent.
I'm just offering another way of moving forward here than what's right in front of us. Because I think that there are other ways of handling it. And I don't think that it's a conversation it's a big change to make. And it's just coming, this is all new in terms of like, where we're going with this conversation. So that's where I stand. Like currently, I would support amending to take the language from the city solicitor into 2009 3J and keeping the original language in the 137, 138, 151, 156, 159 right now. That doesn't mean that we couldn't return to this and have other conversations later around other ways to respond to the fact that I don't think anyone in this room fully thinks that everything happening in the law department is exactly how it should be happening or assigned or functioning.
Do I hear a second? I'll second that. Under discussion, Councilor Reagan, and then Councilor Murphy-Romboletti, and then Patty, and then I got you, Kevin.
So my commentary relative to this section was more directed at the contract negotiations than I was thinking about the council for the council. But in terms of contracts, even though the charter says all, the law department does not negotiate all contracts for the city. And I know it is perhaps standard practice that the city solicitor does do the negotiations for labor contracts in a number of other communities. And I totally know that we're not Springfield, that has its own separate one. And yet, it seems we have every other position that Springfield has in our draft ordinance. So that begs the question. If we don't need what they have relative to labor negotiations, then why do we need the other three positions that are in here either? Because we're 1/3 the size of Springfield. That's a rhetorical question at the moment. But it's a point that this is very expensive. And if Councilor Jourdain's proposal relative to the law department is a surprise, it is something that has been debated in council in the past. And it actually was in ordinance, and it was changed by the law department, who rewrote the ordinance. So I'll let that lie on the table right now. But in terms of contracts, there is no law that says the city solicitor is negotiating all the contracts. I don't think the city solicitor negotiated the wastewater treatment contract that is going to come to us. Right? So I'm just saying, I don't think there's a charter issue here relative to the CAFO having a labor contract consultant, and I totally wouldn't want the CAFO at the table for the negotiations. I would want the labor consultant at the table for the negotiations, so he's in the back costing it out and saying aye, yes, or no. But I think that labor attorney should be reporting to the CAFO, not to the city solicitor, and then they have a how would I say it? A translation of what happened at the meeting secondhand. To me, it should be direct, the lines should be direct. It doesn't take, is it Dupre? It doesn't take that contract away from the city solicitor for whatever they are doing for the city solicitor. It puts them under the CAFO for the contract negotiations. It's not taking access away. It's simply making the lines clear. And if we're talking efficiency, we're talking reorg, let's not make it blurry. The council for the council, we've been around that many times, but that's a bigger, to your point, issue, I think.
Thank you. Councilor Murphy-Romboletti.
Thanks. It's been a while since I raised my hand, so I don't want to forget what my thoughts were that long ago. I would be more, I understand the section on negotiations, like I'm definitely open to that. I don't feel comfortable right now with the legal counsel to the council. That whole section for me, when I was reading it, while I get how they're related, I also, knowing that some of the issues that we're trying to move forward do hinge on the timing of treasurer collector by next February, and some of these positions, I still don't understand how you can have an attorney that represents the city council and an attorney that represents the mayor when we all work for the city. So like I don't fully understand that. I want to understand that. I'm open to it. I just if like we had to pick and choose the things that are important, totally willing to let go of the IT thing for right now. Totally, like, I'll give you guys the residency, whatever you want. I think that it will come back to bite you, but I don't care as much as other things. I have compromised so much on so many aspects of this that without having more information, without having more time, I don't feel comfortable with that section that's the legal counsel to the city council. I'm not ready to vote on that. I don't think we've figured enough of that out. So that's kind of where I'm at, but I completely understand the intent behind J. Is it J? So that's all I got.
Thank you. And to be clear, there's an amendment now. I believe the amendment is to accept the recommendation from the city solicitor's office, correct, right?
I can't vote on it either way.
No, I know. I just want to be clear for myself.
Although I do have one
right.
line in it that I want to talk
Okay.
about.
Councilor Devine and then Councilor Jordan.
Yeah, thank you. I had to come back online. I was listening, and I heard collective bargaining. And many of you know I did that for a living for 12 years. I was an assistant business manager. And I think if you have a CAFO, and again, I might not have heard correctly, are you saying that you want the CAFO to do contract negotiations with the unions?
No,
Because-
I think what
Go ahead.
the assumption is that the CAFO would have his own council in a sense that would represent the council. What I mean when I say council, I mean COUNCILL apparently, because we spell it wrong in Holyoke. I was told by other people, but yeah, versus larger city solicitor managing it all in a sense. Versus, if that makes sense, Patty.
Well, the other, not every contract starts on the same day. Many of them linger because they're trying to work out whatever it is. Their management rights may be different. There's so many different things. And I know that, I'm sure TJ and I know that Attorney Degnan, when I say Chapter 150E, they know what I'm talking about. And what that is that public sector bargaining. And if you're asking this CAFO, whoever that person may be, to move into the city, to do this, to do that, to do all these things, oh, and by the way, we're only going to pay you $137,000. So that's all I'm trying to tell you is I think that you're giving this person so many duties. And again, unless I've missed something, but the negotiations is not as easy as one would think, and especially in public sector. So thank you for listening. Sorry.
Thank you, Councilor Devine. Councilor Jordan.
The only difference in the two from what we're doing today is today we have outside counsel negotiating the contracts, reporting up to the city solicitor who's reporting up to the mayor. Under the new model, it would be the outside counsel reporting to the CAFO, reporting to the mayor. And the person that's signing the contracts today under his duties is only paid $100,000. The CAFO would actually be paid $137,500. But nevertheless, it's just the same thing. Again, having just seen this tonight, I'll talk to Lisa about it, how she sees this going. I'll have to talk to the mayor about it. How would this work? I do like one of the sentences in here that gives the CAFO essentially a veto over the contract. So, there, again, where this is all about a dialogue and a conversation, I'm open to have that conversation. So as far as back to the other problem, I just see it as a huge problem. If this is truly like, hey, we want to modernize Holyoke government, then let's modernize Holyoke government. We have like obvious elephants in the room that I'm trying to solve, and from my perspective, of these obvious conflicts of interest, which is we have most of the time I've observed over the years, because I want to depersonalize it from any one particular solicitor, most of the stuff, we all see this stuff 95% of the time the same way. But when you get these areas of the mayor's power and the council's power, I would take those odds all day long, every day, if my life depended on it, that the law department every single time comes down, it's the mayor and not the council. And why? Because the mayor picks the city solicitor, picks every person who indirectly, that person picks their team, has say over their pay, whether they get reappointed, do they get more vacation. Every nuance is under the control of the mayor. It's a total conflict of interest to then have on these separation of powers issues, that person saying, oh, I'm here, I'm totally neutral, and I just love the law. And you just have to be totally naive to believe that. And if there isn't a conflict, it's the total appearance of conflict. And I've seen this movie, again, not one solicitor, many solicitors. I want to completely divorce this from, this is about what has recently happened. This is 30-year perspective of looking at this. Okay, now we create, and why I'm bringing this all up is the obvious fix is right there, which is we're now creating a director of internal audit. How I see this playing out is I think that person without independent legal counsel is going to be completely stonewalled anytime this person says, I'm going to hold this person who works for the mayor accountable. I'm going to hold this person accountable. I'm going to hold this person, because all they have to do is tell the solicitor, yeah, you can't do that, and you can't do that, and you can't do that, and you can't do that. And we're not going to, and if you have no enforcement mechanism, and you have no legal advice, and you have no one to support you, this job is a joke. It's a total and complete joke. It's like asking I wonder if there's do you think the governor appoints the legal counsel inside the Inspector General's office of Massachusetts? Of course not. And oh, by the way, this is not unique. There's city councils in Massachusetts who have their own legal counsel in this state. Okay. Moreover, the legislature of Massachusetts picks its own legal counsel. Those aren't appointed by Governor Healy. This is the model. What we're doing is the asymmetric, not the correct model because of these obvious conflicts. And you know what? If the city attorney, the solicitor eliminates these conflicts, and the legal counsel to the city council and the independent auditor come up with different opinions, I see that as a good thing. Let them iron out these things and how they will resolve it. Now it's left with, oh, well, maybe we'll go hire KP Law or some other firm and who gets a lucrative contract from us. And quite frankly, it feels like, and it may not be, but it feels like a jukebox. You put the money in and you get the song that it plays. Okay, that's the way, and this isn't just now. I'm talking, this is the way it's been for 30 years. And I've just seen this movie and I want to fix that. So I see this as we need to empower the director of internal audit, and they need that support. So I see this as killing two birds with one stone. And the only other way around it would be, should we not have the mayor appoint the city solicitor anymore? Maybe that, if we really want to shortcut it, maybe part of the answer is the city council appoints the city solicitor. Maybe that's the answer. And maybe I should make that amendment. I don't know, but those are the type of things that we need to have that conversation, because the way I feel now, it's like, well, this is just the way it is, and if you don't like it, too bad, sue us in court. And then now city councilors who are receiving a $10,000 stipend are expected to go hire their own independent private lawyer for $10,000. Who the hell has these kind of extra? It's ridiculous, okay? To go and now fight things that you think are illegal going on. You don't have real oversight in this city, because the one true, only current independent oversight board that exists in the Holyoke government today is the Holyoke City Council, who can actually have power to stand up to any of the mayors, okay? But yet we don't have the resources to actually do the job, to have teeth, to actually hold departments accountable for illegal actions. And it's so obvious. And yet we can just keep whistling by the cemetery, and I am not willing to do that, because we're talking about creating the director of internal audit, which I think is awesome. Wasn't on my bingo card, but that came out of this, and I kudos to whoever came up with that. Springfield uses it, and I like it. But that position has to have teeth, and it needs this, and that's why I went down that road, because it solves our problem of independent oversight. So.
Mayor Garcia, I saw you wanted to be recognized. Is that still? Yeah. Then Councilor Tessa Murphy-Romboletti.
There's a lot to unpack there, but that's a different or another conversation for another time. Just in general, just so you guys are aware, right? We have this executive branch that's overseeing this, this position of CAFO. What we're trying to do is get an expert in there to help the administration make informed decisions. They're not negotiating contracts, but the mayor, whoever it is, puts together the bargaining team to negotiate these contracts. And naturally, you have your legal people. And Kelly, as the personnel director, is part of that team. And what we've been missing for forever is the analysis as to whether or not it's possible. They're not going to advise or negotiate if they like something or if they don't like something, but instead say, what do you guys want to do? And then do the analysis and let you know, yeah, this might be okay for year one, but here's your impacts, year two, year three, here are the assumptions of what we think it. Or if you want to do 3%, or if you want to do a 6% raise, here's what you're going to have to do differently over here. Maybe you can possibly meet that 6%. But it's not the CAFO's job to go and negotiate terms, but advise on the if whether or not it's possible or even doable, and be able to confidently come to the council and give their opinion. Whoever the mayor is, if they say, I know you don't agree with it, but we're going to go forward with this anyways, to say, hey, look, here's the analysis. It might be okay for year one, maybe year two, but just here's some breaking points if you support, if this contract support it. It's that forecast analysis to advise both our branches so that we're making clear and informed decisions and not doing anything that's going to potentially impact or bring liability to the city later. So for the CAFO to have their independent solicitor, I'm trying to understand what that person would do, and all they're doing really is giving financial forecast analysis as to if something is doable or not doable. I know this idea of the council having, I think that what we're trying to do, and we all agree, and how we get there is where the debate is establishing a system that's going to protect our government, protect the resources, navigate controls so that we're providing better services and and dodging any potential harm that can come to the city based on a decision. But also, like, we do have our checks and balance system between the legislative and the executive, and then we have our voting system. If the people in the community don't like or what's going on, then they can vote us out, or the mayor or the council. And so that's how systems are. I don't think we're going to come up with a perfect system to get us closer. I think the ideas that I'm hearing just create a little bit more, us versus them. It creates more divide between the branches and also different parties under our branches. It's just creating more, I haven't been around long enough to see what happened 20 years ago. So I'm not discrediting anything that anybody is saying about what they saw in the past, but the system that we have currently, there are things that we can be doing differently that we're exploring. I'm hearing you, but also I don't want to move away from the values of what we have between, the government, the way it's created between the two. We have these two branches. You got the executive oversight, you have the legislative, and now we're getting creative. We're starting to tip our toe into areas that don't necessarily honor that system. And again, election time comes around, and everything really comes back to that. Between the director of accounts and the CAFO and everyone, we're all connected, we're all involved. There's a lot of opportunity in our system right now to bring concerns up at a public meeting, and debate the issues that might have that are coming up. So I feel like the systems are there, and we're trying to strengthen a little bit, but doing too much might interfere, might create unintended consequences, regardless of the good intention that we're trying to create. So I don't want to go too far, but if we can get just enough where, again, we're being properly advised on decisions, that's the bottom line of what I want to get to, no matter who's the mayor, is the continuity. An expert in here that's advising us on the financial situation when we decide on a financial related decision, whether if it's a contract negotiation, an investment, a purchase, that number one, the funds are there, and number two, that we're looking out if we're going to build that building, or if we're going to, what's the long-term effect on our bottom line, with maintenance and other costs that we've never really looked at. We just kind of have done and worried about it later, is where I'm trying to get to. But again, going back, the idea with the CAFO is not to lead bargaining teams, or negotiations, is to be part of that team together with the personnel and the legal department to come up with the options and ideas that they do present to the mayor, because the mayor is the executive authority of the town, that then can look at their CAFO and say, hey, is this doable? Is this even an option? Or if we agree to this, like what are the, and then gets presented to the council, and then, start unraveling that. I just want to make sure that structure right there is clear, so that we're not creating any confusion for anybody that's watching, that we're trying to create like these separate powers, separate governments, and then giving this person that authority over that person, and now you got the council. It just sounds like we're creating it's getting a little confusing, or adding too much to what we're trying to achieve here.
Thank you, Councilor Murphy-Romboletti.
Thanks. Never mind. I just want this to be productive. It kind of feels like it hasn't been productive in the last 20 minutes, and that's all I want. And I'm gonna stop and I think Rory had his hand up. If you want to,
I got Patty online first, and then I got you, Rory. Councilor Patty Devine.
Thank you. I'll be quick because the mayor really said a lot of what I was going to say. And one thing that he said that really struck me was unintended consequences. collective bargaining is not something that anybody can do without some kind of experience. And I think it's really important that we get somebody that, whether it's our law department or a special counsel to do that. It's really, really important. And if you're not careful with this, you will spend more time in arbitration or court. So as I always remind people up on that wall, makers of law, makers of history, we are not the executive branch. So I apologize for butting in again, and I will say goodnight.
No, thank you, Councilor Devine. Rory?
Yeah, I actually I wanted to clarify or have a clarifying question, both for Councilor Jourdain, but also for TJ, and obviously perhaps somebody from the law department. It's kind of the same question for everybody, but I'll start with you, Councilor Jourdain, just the kind of decision-making matrix that you were talking about, and I'm just focused on the collective bargaining piece right now, because I think the rest of it's kind of a separate conversation, an important one that should be had. But just on the collective bargaining piece, the concept of, who's instructing who and how the negotiations happen, if ultimately, their financial decisions and the CAFO is empowered to be the final say on those financial decisions. That's what has been proposed by the solicitor here. That's definitely, at least for me, when we've had these conversations, what we've been discussing, that the CAFO the mayor wouldn't be able to finally execute contracts if the CAFO's not saying this is in the best financial interest of the city. And so then the concerns that were raised, and I understand the concerns, so this is where I'm looking for a little clarification, is the Labor Council, right? Just that one piece, the Labor Council. And we talk about kind of the oversight, where it's mayor, as you were stating, the current structure is mayor, solicitor, Labor Council, right? And that's how decisions would be made. And kind of the idea here would be that the CAFO would be inserted into that and would, maybe not drive the entire bargaining strategy, wouldn't be at the table, but would be the one saying, no, you're not going with those 2% because it's not financially stable. Labor Council, don't even put that on the table. And I know right now that's essentially part of the role of the mayor. The mayor does that currently.
It happens now, yeah.
That happens now, but under this kind of new proposal that we're talking about where the CAFO's part of it. Are you, in your mind, are you thinking that the CAFO would be able to hire and fire the Labor Council, or is it that they would be the ones to tell the Labor Council, the CAFO in this scenario, you go in there, you can't go above 2% in the first year, you can't go above 3% in the second year, and you better keep it flat in the third year. And that the CAFO is the one saying that to the solicitor's office and vis-a-vis the labor attorney, who are the ones at the table. Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah, thank you for the question, because it teases out the issue. It's one of reactive versus proactive. One of the things that, again, only having seen this language today, I appreciate the fact that there's teeth and that there's this veto.
Yeah.
But it does sort of suggest a reactive, that you come in at the end, the package is just one of, can we afford this? And if mathematically, yeah, we can afford it, but is it advisable? What I think we would want to consider here, if we're going in this direction, would that the CAFO is integral to the strategy at the outset, not just this sort of check like the city council's a check at the end, right? Where he's simply, or she is simply is there enough beans in the jar to pay the contract, right? It's got to be more than that. It's got to be that, and where I was seeing the role was that basically the CAFO is really saying, these are the needs. Day in and day out, I have the strategy, this person, this is allegedly why we're hiring this, has the knowledge and experience to set the vision and financial strategy of the entire city. One of the number one expense we have is labor. And therefore he needs to have his or her finger on the that driver. And so it needs to be setting the strategy for the contract negotiations. And so if the person who is the person at the table, the lawyer, you know, and again, how I've never inquired as to how many people are at the table at every session. Is it just Russ? Is it Russ or the solicitor comes in for so many? And however, I don't get down in those kind of weeds. But how I would be seeing it, nor do I expect the CAFO to be going to every one of these sessions, by the way, is saying we need X and here's why, and you said these are the red lines. And by the way, I mean, I know we're spending a lot of time on this, but two other things I really wanted to talk about tonight too is where are we going with the role of the mayor in the post-CAFO world, right? What new things can, if a lot of this stuff is freed up from the chief executive, where can he or she put more energy and focus? And I think we need to give more language here, and it's being very much underwhelmingly discussed, is the new role of the mayor. That the mayor can now go levels deeper because he or she is not dealing with a lot of these weeds. And so we need to get that on the agenda at some point because that's a huge part of the Modernization Act. And then the second piece is the role of the schools. So, and because one of the things that I don't like that's in the proposed new language from this evening is excluding all school department unions. Why are they being excluded? So why are those negotiations any different? So I don't think there should be an exclusion there. You know, a lot of this home office expense, it doesn't count towards net school spending. It's all being funded by Holyoke taxpayers. So why shouldn't they be controlling these expenses? And, you know, and there should be an overall strategy. And obviously with those negotiations, we should probably put in here something with consultation with the school committee, with consultation with the superintendent, and these other roles. But this should be the CAFO should be the CAFO of the whole city. And, you know, Sean Mangano should be reporting to the CAFO and all the way down is how I see this kind of working. But so that's my thoughts on it is the proactiveness, and I'm open to the hiring and firing and if there's other suggestions of how this can work, but that is the spirit of it. I want the CAFO driving the needs based on the strategy and the strategic plan of the city.
You know, that makes sense. And I'm just wondering if, again, just specific to the solicitor's proposed language and understanding that, I wonder if the solution is an amendment to it in the second sentence that starts with the CAFO shall cost out every bargaining proposal, to your point, not just reactively cost out every bargaining proposal, because that speaks to what you're mentioning, right? That they're coming and saying, what would 2% cost? You could amend this potentially to say the CAFO
with the mayor sets the strategy for
exactly. That's exactly where I was going with it. Yeah. That the CAFO along with the mayor shall set the overall bargaining strategy for the city, right. And that, you know, and then that could be its own sentence, and then that maybe the, you know, CAFO shall cost out every bargaining proposal for both sides.
And there has to be some role where the CAFO, if the negotiator isn't doing what is inconsistent with the strategy.
Yes.
This is why my thought process is to have the negotiator, the paid legal counsel, under the direction of the CAFO is because, well, what if this person's at odds with the person setting the strategy? So I wanted this seemed like an obvious direct report to have these people aligned. If you can build in protections with language, I'm open to them. But,
Yeah, I think with this, just on, again, just specific to the collective bargaining piece, I think that is there. And I can't speak for anybody else, but I do think that, based on the conversations that have been having, that even generated this language today, that is the spirit. Like that is, we're all like on the same page. I think we're just trying to get to the specific language that needs to be there to codify that, to protect that, right? And I think that what Solicitor Ball has put forward here, along with some of what we just discussed, I think we could probably find an amendment to get to that piece.
Councilor Magrath-Smith.
So it's funny because I had a concern with the first line, and I think everybody has just hashed it out. So my main concern was that it says, shall work in conjunction with, and I just didn't know what that meant, right? Like I needed it to be clearer than that. So I like adding a second line, and I would definitely propose that as an amendment, that we add a second line after unions that says the CAFO, along with the mayor, will coordinate bargaining strategy. But the piece, though, too, that I did want to respond to what Councilor Jordan said, is I think I like the language in here that makes it very clear that the before any agreement is reached between the city and any city union, there must be consent by the CAFO. That, to me, is exactly the veto power that I wanted the CAFO to be able to have. And I don't think reactive will work. If anyone, the Labor Council, the city solicitor, anyone who knows they need the CAFO's permission, they can't be like, oh, here it is at the end. They will have to work with that person to say, what is it that you need us to do as we walk into that room? Is there any guidance you want to give us, knowing what you know? Because hopefully they're doing the financial forecasting that we're saying that this person has to do on a regular basis. And anyone worth their salt as a labor council is going to go to the CAFO and say, hey, can I run by you what I'm thinking? Tell me what you know about financial forecasting before I go into this room. And so I do actually think that it's not just reactive. I think that veto power will drive the labor negotiations being proactive. That's why I liked it. And also, so you had talked about advisable versus affordable. It says in it, the CAFO is expected to attend all city council meetings and committee meetings to explain their reasoning. It's the reasoning. It's not an up or down. And I know that we've looked at least one sample memo that TJ shared at an earlier meeting. I really appreciated, because we've been saying, hearing the term analysis. It was helpful to me to see that draft memo, or actually it was a real memo, that really did over 3 or 4 paragraphs walk through exactly why they were approving that transfer. And I think that's the kind of analysis we would get. It would have to have reasoning in it. So I think in that case, sometimes when you read a memo like that, it's clear they might say, sure, you could do it. I don't think you should, but you could, right? The CAFO, I think, has that capacity to do that. And I don't know if TJ wants to speak more about what that looks like in terms of what does it look like to explain reasoning in a final proposal?
Yeah, no, that's an excellent question. Literally what it comes down to, as I mentioned, sustainability, but also, let me explain, when I was CAFO, let me explain to the city council. So the belts and suspenders that happen in city government is the mayor sets the authority and says, go negotiate. The CAFO and or labor relations and or city solicitor, depending on your community, go in under that authority, and they can't go beyond that authority. So I don't know if anyone's ever been at the negotiating table, but the authority is whatever it is, and they're not allowed to go above that. Now they may get side conversations saying, hey, we don't want 2, we want 2.75, and can you do this, and we'll give you X, Y, and Z. And that is the side conversations, and they'll bring that back to the CAFO and say they don't want 2, they want 2.75, but we got body worn cameras by paying actually 2 or 3%. worth every penny in Springfield, worth every penny. And Brian can tell you that. But generally speaking, it's
Thank you, Councilor
just
Garcia.
set it up where the mayor sets the authority, and then you, as a city council, are the final arbiter. Well, depending if it's police and fire, but the final vote of whether or not you pay for it. Like the checks and balances exist. It's just a matter, and I understand Councilor Jordane's desire, and I don't have a problem with any of it, as long as everyone agrees that the bargaining strategy starts A, with the mayor, and B, through the CAFO, and ultimately the CAFO is going to say, here's the reasoning. And the reasoning is, we can afford, 2.5% increases for the next 3 years, and here's what we're getting out of it. And then they go to the council and say, here's what it is. I don't know if that answers your question, Counselor,
Yes.
but.
Yes, thank you. My last thought, I hear, Councilor Jordan, saying, well, and there's also this piece, and there's that piece, and that piece. There's so many layers in here. And I think the hard part right now is trying to decide where the stopping point is. I would like this to be the stopping point. I'm ready to move this to council. We've talked about this, I don't know how many hours. I mean, just collectively, individually, we've spent a lot of time on this. I think we've done really good work. I think that we should move this forward. There's a lot of things that we have to tackle. Like Phase B, we haven't talked about IT. We haven't, addressed the schools piece. I think the fact that they're transitioning out of receivership, and there's a lot of complications right now around collective bargaining, and actually even who has authority right now over that makes it particularly complex to try to tackle that right now. I think give us a year as we've actually navigated being out of receivership. I think then maybe we can talk more about that. But right now, collective bargaining isn't necessarily even something completely within our purview. So I think there's other things that we want to tackle, the law department. I want to tackle DPW. Like, there's so many things, right, that we want to restructure and reanalyze. I think we have to decide on a stopping point. The new fiscal year starting. There's a lot of things we have to work on. I'm not happy with everything that's in here. It doesn't feel finished. This work never feels finished. You just have to pick stopping points. And then you pick it up again, and you do the next slice, the next layer. We could never do all of it once, all together. So I'm ready to move this forward to council for an honest conversation. We see where it lands. And I think folks may want to say, I'm not ready. That's okay too. But I feel like for me, this is an okay stopping point.
Okay. That being said, any other amendments added to the amendment? Councilor Bacon?
So I'm still on the point about the collective bargaining and the line of accountability. Nobody is saying the CAFO should be at the negotiating table.
Mm-hmm.
But in every other position in here, we have essentially adopted the ordinance from Springfield and changed the name to Holyoke. And all the positions that were in Springfield are in here, correct?
Not anymore.
A lot. This draft.
No.
Is very
In
different.
the original draft that we received.
Oh, okay. Those are two
Yes.
different topics, though. We're talking about
Well, it's
original
the same
draft and
topic,
the red
it's a
line
different
draft.
draft.
Okay.
So one was taken out, but what was presented to us are all these other positions that just came to the council a month ago. All the added positions that were never discussed. So for us to take the time and go through it and review it and come in with some other ideas, and then to be said, oh, it's taking it too far, when we weren't in all those discussions that led to the first 26-page thing. So we're, for the first time, talking about all these other things. CAFO's always been on the table, and treasurer collector's been on the table. None of the other stuff has been on the table. And all I was saying is not that the CAFO should be doing the negotiations, but that the Labor Council should be reporting to the CAFO in the job description for the CAFO, which nobody has approved yet, says, under the mayor's direction, responsible for the oversight and direction of financial management and administration of the city's annual operating budget and capital plan, oversees the Department of Finance, including school finances, as well as the human resource and labor departments, including all collective bargaining for city employees. Work is performed under the supervision of the mayor. In order for that to be true, in my opinion, the Labor Council needs to report to the CAFO. It's very simple. It's not, a veto power does not encourage anybody to do anything, in my opinion, except to do what they choose to do and see if the person will veto it. We're trying to, in my view, from what I've been hearing, is to avoid getting to the point where the veto is needed because, to Councilor Jourdain's point, we're being proactive instead of reactive. And we're factoring in non-monetary costs in the contracts, which have been ignored, along with the percentage of raises. Time off costs money. And these are things that have sort of just blithely been passed along for years and years. So all I'm advocating for is a proper line of accountability on an org chart. This is not complicated. It is not confusing. It is very straightforward. And it doesn't take anything away from the law department. They can have their labor contract for what they use it for. But if you're going to give this role that responsibility, then that negotiating law council, in my view, should be reporting to them. So I'm a no on the amendments, but if you want to get to the question.
Thank you. Real quick before I recognize you, Councilor Magrath-Smith, it is 9:21, and
First item.
we are on item 6, just so you know, only one item, and we only go till 10, unless we suspend rules.
We don't have rules and committees.
It's only for full council?
That's it.
Well, I'm telling you, we're going to 10. That's real talk. 10 o'clock comes on.
I would have liked to have gone in order anyways.
We all like a lot of things. It just doesn't work out that way. Councilor Magrath-Smith.
So, I guess my question is, I felt like there's a lot of language in this that has been added, some original, some new to this draft, that states very clearly that the CAFO is in charge of personnel management. Everyone reports to them. So I just don't think we have to add it because I think they already do. I completely agree. They should be reporting what they're doing up to the CAFO. I think they already are, based on all the different places in this ordinance where it says that they do.
You wouldn't have this memo if that was the case.
Well, I think this is specifically trying to name its role in collective bargaining here.
Right.
And
which is the
continuing
old
that.
way, and we're talking new ways.
Okay.
So, on the motion is the amendment.
Am I, someone who drafted this, am I wrong that they do report to
Not
them?
here.
Well, the law department is here, and I know that Attorney Degnan was part of this conversation along with TJ. I will just say, kudos to Councilor Jourdain
Totally.
and Councilor Vacan on this draft that we're reviewing right now, because quite honestly, the whole concept of personnel administration falling under this,
That's great.
we purposely did not include that because we thought that may be too much to tackle right now. The fact that it is included and it's fully supported, like, all day long, like,
Yeah.
I just want to name that because Councilor McGrath brought that up and it hasn't been discussed. That is in here. It is in the draft that is being discussed right now. That is like no flags. that caught us all welcome. That was welcome to see, news to see that in here. And I would encourage the council to talk with the attorneys present, because I think there's a little misinterpretation, and I can understand why, because there's so much. This is a lot. So it's understandable. But I think this is one of those situations where we're kind of, there's a lot of agreement to say, like, the direction we want to head in. I think there's just a little disagreement about, like, are we taking the right, are we using the right language? Because at the end of the day, to Councilor Rivera's earlier point about just like talking plainly, the scenario that's being discussed, both in the spirit of the draft language that Councilor Jordan put forward and the draft language that Solicitor Ball put forward, is saying CAFO's going to lead the negotiating strategy. That is, and I understand that it's not clear, so like, let's make that clear, but that is the spirit based on the conversations, that the labor attorney who is at the table, and to your earlier question, Councilor Jordan, it is usually a team. I've been part of that team in the past. There are people who are part of that team. It's never just one person. It's a team of folks that, just like the unions bring a team of folks to the table. That team, the direction they're getting is coming from the CAFO. That they're not going to TJ's earlier point, have the authority to go beyond what the CAFO's instructed them to do. And you are absolutely correct, Councilor Vacan, that if we were just talking about the financial aspect, this council and previous mayors have approved contracts that you might say, not you, Councilor Vacan, that one might say had no financial impact because it was zeros across the board. What else was baked into those contracts? That's what we're trying to avoid, is that, because the CAFO in this scenario isn't just running a number where it's saying, yeah, 2% in 3 years is going to cut. No, it's the buyout language that you're offering up, or these additional sick days that they can buy back. There's no dollar figure attached to that in the contract.
Right.
But there is absolutely all day long a financial impact to this city. And I know that is something that Mayor Garcia is trying to tackle. I know that's something that our current negotiating team is trying to tackle, and it's concerns that many of the folks in this room, if not all the folks in this room, have raised in the
Right.
past.
So the CAFO would need the labor attorney.
And that's
Direct line.
That is what is proposed, and that's why I asked the clarifying question about, both to just make sure it was understood that the Labor Council performs more than one task for the city. And so that direct line that you're talking about, I think, to find the right language to insert, to, because if it's the hiring and firing of the Labor Council, I think that's one thing. But if it's the direct line to say, for the purposes of collective bargaining, the Labor Council reports to the CAFO, that's essentially what is being agreed to here. I think it's just the matter of language that we're getting lost on. And I hope I made myself clear, because I was asking a clarifying question, and I feel like,
Yeah. Councilor Magrath-Smith.
Okay, I was just going through all of my documents, and now I need to go back to the original, because I feel like
Telling you 10 o'clock.
now in my documents I'm looking at 2 J's.
So
Yeah.
can I recognize Councilor Jordan
Yes,
until you find it?
please.
All right, Councilor Jordan.
It just raises questions for me, because I actually think I thought that 1J was staying, and now I'm wondering if one of these is a duplicate of the other that was replaced by one of your edits.
Okay.
Because in the J on my page 11, it says, the CAFO shall be responsible for overseeing all aspects of the city's labor management activities, working with the mayor, city solicitor, and personnel administrator. But then there's another J that we have been talking about this whole time around, the CAFO shall appoint, remove, and supervise any legal counsel.
Right, and again.
But are those different J's the same? Like, this is why,
Same.
Councilor Jordan.
did one replace the other in your edit? Or are these both different J's? in
No,
different
because
sections?
the old J only had something about, by executive order, the mayor may place other provisions other positions and departments under the direction of the CAFO. Maybe there's something else that you're referring to, but the J that ultimately got redlined out is what that sentence said. I just want to say to Rory's point, he's right, that the goal here is not like this person can do other work for the city. Like, if he's advising on a sexual harassment case or a discrimination case or Lord knows what, great. It's only related to these duties. So maybe that, if you want to tweak the wording, so, is it hire, fire, whatever, it's the CAFO has selection over the negotiator of negotiations, but the law department can also hire this person to go and do all these sundry of other duties. I have no problem with whatsoever. And again, again, not looking to take any authority away from the law department, just to have this and basically put the negotiations under the ultimate person and persons responsible, which is, I always looked at this as going to be CAFO with the mayor sets the strategy. He then goes out and executes on the strategy with the assistance of this legal counsel. They then have to go back and essentially go to the mayor. I almost thought the mayor should be the one with the veto power, because he or she should be saying, whoa, we set out this first. I mean, this is basic, like, job. Your boss tells you, go do X. You go do X. And if X can't happen, you got to go back to the boss and explain why I couldn't get X. I tried real hard, but I could only get Y. So I was kind of seeing it like they set the objectives. CAFO goes with this negotiator to execute on the strategy. They then have to go back to the mayor and say, boss, we nailed it. Or boss, we nailed A, B, and C, but D and E, what do you think? And then the mayor can veto it and say, nope, you all we're either tweaking the strategy or you're going back to the table. So that was kind of how I was seeing this play out. And it just seems weird to me that the negotiator is being picked by the law department. It's like this third person over here doing it. And it's like, we're trying to find a way to keep the law department in every facet of everything we do here. And just because that's the way we've always done it. And it just seems odd to me. But we'll figure it out.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Real quick. Go ahead.
No, that's good.
No, go ahead.
Regan wants to speak.
All right, Councilor Bacon then.
So the point that I would make would be the law department can have whoever they want for whatever they want for labor. The CAFO should be able to have the labor negotiator that the CAFO wants. If he likes that labor negotiator, great. If he thinks another one is better, he shouldn't have to use one just because somebody else is. In my opinion, he's the bottom line. He should have the people that he trusts and knows to do it. He may think the one we have is great. I mean, I'm not saying anything about who's here now. I'm just saying if it's his job or her job, they should have the say in who is doing the work that they have to make the decision about. It's only right. I mean, it's only correct in terms of lines of authority and accountability. That's how business runs.
And by the way, the CAFO is going to have to consult the law department. I like that language,
Right.
About all these sundry, because if personnel is under the CAFO, the personnel administrator and CAFO are going to have to be consulting the law department a lot, because the law department's going to be driving all of those issues and is going to be supporting them, and hire, fire, and all of this. It's really just the piece about the negotiations in the collective bargaining piece.
I have a suggestion. Based on this conversation and also my lived experience dealing with this. And this is just me. This is not part of any other conversation with the solicitor's office or the mayor, but I do think that this is something that could work and would achieve the goals that are being mentioned here this evening, along with the ultimate goal, which is if you took the language that Solicitor Ball suggested and amended it. I know I've already suggested amendments, there's some up for topic right now. But get specific, that it's not just that the strategy is set by the CAFO and the mayor, that the mayor and the CAFO will assign the negotiating team. And then that would give the CAF, because different contracts sometimes have different negotiating teams, right? You might have the police contract where you want to have the chief there. You might not want to have the chief there.
Right.
You might, the team is assembled
With
in
who
different
has the
ways
knowledge.
with who has the knowledge.
Right.
And I think that would still give the law department their, authority to have that labor attorney that they need for all the other work.
Right.
And if that was the attorney that the mayor and CAFO felt was best suited, but if for some reason they were not performing, that the mayor and the CAFO would be able to assign someone else or go to the solicitor and say, no, they are not going to be part of this negotiating team. You need to give me someone else, or I'm going to select someone else. I think that's a nice, I think that's a path forward that I would recommend.
So, yeah, let's develop some language around all these concepts and get it in here. And
Yeah, because we got till 10 o'clock. Just a reminder. I'm serious.
I mean, maybe we need to write
language,
this out.
the language as I hear it is adding a line after the second line. The original amendment just said the CAFO along with the mayor will coordinate bargaining strategy. Based on this proposal, it would say the CAFO along with the mayor will coordinate bargaining strategy and assign the members of the bargaining negotiation team.
Establish strategy, not coordinate.
Okay, happy to.
Strategy. Yep.
This is all fine with me. I completely
So is that an amendment
believed
to
in
the
all of
amendment?
this from J to J that the CAFO always had oversight over all the city's labor management activities. So I'm fine with this language. I didn't realize that J had been removed.
So that's an amendment to the amendment?
Yeah.
Do I hear a second? I'm going to second it. Under discussion?
My only concern is it budget neutral? Can we afford it? I know 'cause part of this reality is we have this halftime position and here's who does what. So does it necessitate in the, where would it get pulled from effectively is what I'm asking. I mean, we're in budget hearing season. So is this being pulled from the mayor's contracted services line? Is this being pulled from another line that we insert in the law department?
Why would it be any more money?
Just if we needed to hire a totally different person than we normally,
Then we wouldn't be using I'm sorry to
we'd be
just
hiring
insert
someone
myself here,
on
but
retainer
but we wouldn't be, in that scenario, it would still be budget neutral.
Okay.
Which is, I think, where Councilor Jordan was going, because there's already an outside counsel line in the solicitor's office.
Okay.
That is that's what the labor attorney is paid out of.
But it could be a different
In
outside-
the event that the mayor and the CAFO don't agree that that is the right person to be part of the negotiations. Again, removing all the current people, because I don't think
Right.
anyone has an issue with the current people, but you never know.
Yep.
That they would have to pull from that same outside counsel line. There's only one line that pays for outside counsel, and it's that line in the solicitor's office. And in this scenario, the mayor, there wouldn't be a negotiation if the mayor and the CAFO didn't agree to do that. So.
Anyone else? On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No,
Anyone against?
no.
2-1, the amendment pass with regards to that language.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
So just clarifying the amendment, we're replacing the J that's on the screen there with the J that the solicitor proposed?
We're taking on the recommendation from the solicitor that she would propose, but with another amendment on top, where, Meg, if you can clarify, just in case, and I'm assuming it's that within the line, the budget with contracted services under the city solicitor, that if the mayor and the CAFO, for some reason, feel like they need to move in another direction around bargaining or any legal counsel, that they have the power to potentially do so. Is that correct, Meg?
Do you want me to send him the
All right, so
language?
you have 292.3J on the screen right now. Are you replacing that with what Lisa suggested?
Mm-hmm. Just adding that
Yes,
one
but-
additional line.
But adding a line that clarifies that the mayor and the CAFO have the power, and I think Meg is sending you some language too as well around it.
I'm just sending you exactly what we just said out loud.
All right,
Establish the strategy.
Will establish.
And the negotiation team.
There you
The
go.
CAFO, along with the mayor,
Okay.
will establish bargaining strategy and assign the members of the bargaining negotiation team.
Correct.
Okay, so I'm taking this out and putting in that other language first. And then, where did you go? Just.
Okay. I sent it to
Formatting
you
is
by
just
email if
plain-
that's helpful.
No, I'm just trying to edit it the right way, and the formatting is playing games with me.
No worries.
We believe in you.
No worries.
All right, so
Councilor Bacon.
I'm just pointing out, we didn't even talk about all the language, and I think to stipulate in an ordinance that the CAFO will attend all city council meetings and committee meetings is, we don't stipulate that to any other employee of the city. I mean, we allow people to send representatives in their place relative to this or that, or as reasonable. I mean, this is like, really, the person might spend half of their job coming to committee meetings and city council meetings if we say they have to go to every meeting to explain financial matters. It just seems overbearing to me
I
in
understand.
the language, that's all. But we're done with it, so let
Yeah,
it go.
I mean, it's
Just a
already
comment.
voted on, but Councilor
It's just a
Magrath-Smith.
comment.
That's fine. She has a comment
So,
too.
all right.
My just an interpretation of that line was that they were only expected to attend city council meetings and committee meetings where they were being asked to explain their reasoning for that final proposal. So this was only in the language around the negotiations for labor
There
contracts.
could be many, many, but,
Thank you.
okay.
oh, I'm just
Did we want to leave that school
doing this
department
because
exclusion?
formatting is weird.
The what?
Meg, did you want to keep that excluding all school department unions?
I mean, I don't love it, but honestly, like
We didn't-
where we're at
it's-
right now,
It's
I would
in
I
there.
I think we need to tackle it moving forward, but I actually don't think we're in a great place to tackle it given the murkiness of the situation currently.
It's in there, right? So, it's there. Mr. Chairman.
Councilor Bacon.
So in this draft, I've asked for this in the budget hearings, I've asked for the cost analysis relative to this ordinance. Because I'm not seeing budget neutrality. I saw the question raised about budget neutrality relative to this language we're talking about now. And I have requested a side-by-side to see the budget neutrality with the side budget that came with the budget book, and I have nothing. And so I'm not seeing budget neutrality here, and I'm looking for that, because we have, at least by my count, 2 additional new positions in the city. Now, I understand that there's a concept of shifting things around and reorg and et cetera, but I need to be able to see the numbers and follow the numbers relative to the budget, which aren't jiving at this moment.
If I could.
Can we be sure, Rory? Go ahead, Rory.
No, I just want to make sure, because I do apologize. I thought that had been
I mean, I might
submitted-
have missed something.
No, that's why I wanted to clarify.
But-
No. I want to make sure, so last night at the budget hearing, when you were asking me about the kind of the optional budget.
Yeah.
So what was submitted along with that optional budget was the summary page.
Yes.
And that summary page is identical to what, the summary page that's in your, what did you call it? The old book or the regular book? Or the big book?
Basic
The big book,
budget
the
book,
basic
yeah.
book, the big book.
I acknowledge that I have seen that.
Yes.
When I was looking at it and
Yeah.
trying to reconcile it to the basic budget book
Yep.
and the ancillary.
Yep. So
I could not
Yep, but
tie those
I can
out.
tell you exactly where to. So if you had that in front of you,
Well,
and you might not.
I don't.
But if you did, and I could pull it up if we need to. But where that is, I'll tell you exactly, and I can give you the numbers too. So on the summary page at the very bottom, once you get down to the bottom, and it says total general fund.
yep,
The total general fund, now keep in mind, this number I'm about to give you includes the IT
Yep.
department, which I think we're all in agreement is being removed. So this total budget number would actually go down. It would actually become more than budget neutral in this scenario because that's a position, we're already not adding any new positions. We were netting out less positions. This is going to be one less position at a budget number of about 90,000.
so,
But the total general fund budget is $180,172,699.
right,
And if you look at the budget that was presented,
oh, I'm with you on the bottom line.
Yes.
I'm with you on the totality in the bottom
Yes.
line, saying, okay, if you took out these administrative assistants and you
Yep.
took this out and you took that out, you ended up with the same budget. But
yes,
what, I guess I'm not expressing myself well. I'm trying to see the translation of the financial department over here to the financial department over there, and how that side by side translates in dollars and cents. Because it feels like, it looks like, and the numbers are saying to me that we are taking things out of other departments to put into this finance reorg. And that's what I want to see. That's
So-
what I want to understand.
Yeah,
Because that's what I think I'm seeing.
so it's all there in it's
Okay.
in the two budget books. It's all right there.
All right, I'll cross-reference everything. on my
And
own.
what I would recommend is you can look at the bottom line, but then we put some thought into how we constructed it, honestly, based on some of your questions. As we were working on this, I was thinking, these are the types of things that Councilor Vacan has been asking for. So that's why I apologize, it hasn't been clearly articulated, and I do understand where the confusion can come in. If you look at not just the bottom line summary, but then if you look at the each line between, what is the city treasurer budget now? We started talking a little bit about this last night.
Correct.
What is the tax collector's budget now? And then if you look at the optional budget, again, on that summary page, then you can actually start seeing
Right, and I can see
differences.
it. What I wanted was a summary sheet so that I don't have to write up my
Oh,
own summary sheet.
okay.
Because I can go through it all
Yeah.
and figure it out. But there's positions moving from one department to another department
Mm-hmm.
to another department. So it looks like you've got a savings over here, but then you've got an increase over there.
Yeah.
I was trying to see the picture of it.
Got it.
But I can do it myself, but that's what I was looking for.
Okay.
A cross path, but anyway. All right, thanks.
Of course.
Thank you. So in item 6, I'll entertain a motion to recommend, Counselor
Can I ask one more?
Magrath-Smith, go ahead. We got time.
I just put it on Counselor Jordan's desk.
Mm-hmm.
That line, is that already in the personnel department section anywhere? Or do we have to move that there?
Oh, you mean from the personnel ordinance?
Yeah. Like, is that line in the personnel section? Or do we have to move that line in order to preserve it? This is the last line of J, the original J, that talked about the CAFO having oversight over folks in the personnel department.
Yeah,
Does that exist in the personnel
to your
department?
point, we should be careful to make sure that stays included, that sentence.
Yes. So I want to make sure that
Yeah,
it's
so-
in the personnel section already. If not, I want to move that before we
Yeah, so
entertain
that was
a
on
motion to
page 12.
move 6 forward.
Yeah.
There are definitely two J's in this, in the red line draft.
Yes, that's why I was confused. We rectified it, but yes, my goodness. I'll be happy once we have
Oh,
a
right,
document that
because
has all of the
on my
removed sections gone.
J, yeah, I see
that's at the
I see
end,
what
right?
happened, that, there is two J's.
Yeah.
But, one was the old J,
I know.
that became the confusion. The quote-unquote new J has that, so the one that came from my edition would be, the CAFO shall be responsible for overseeing all aspects, now, by the way, this language is in the original draft, just the lettering got changed. CAFO shall be responsible for overseeing all aspects of the city's labor management activities. That was in the original draft. Working with the mayor, city solicitor, and personnel administrator, that, I added that, just changed the name from director. The CAFO will provide professional guidance and oversee and coordinate all strategies, negotiations, settlements regarding collective bargaining, grievance and arbitration, and all matters related to the promotion and maintenance of a harmonious labor management relationship. The CAFO will decide all personnel matters subject to final approval of the mayor.
Okay, so I think what we need to do is clarify that the one we edited was the J.
Was the
The
old J, which started by the sentence,
By executive order.
correct, by
And we're-
executive
And
order.
we're keeping the J
Yeah.
That one, that's
Yes.
right.
that says the CAFO
That's
shall
where
be
I was like shuffling
responsible.
papers and being like, wait a minute.
Yeah, well, and it's over
That
3
other one
pages.
stays as we amended it. And, because that sentence of
It's really
CAFO basically reads in the current law, personnel administrator, subject to the final approval of the mayor, and we've made it CAFO, subject to the final approval of the mayor. So, yeah, the law department proposed no changes to that other paragraph.
Correct.
What they proposed is what became the old J.
Yes.
This language that I had put in red line, they have now proposed as you did with the amendments.
Yes.
That's
So my last amendment is that needs to be added back in. Because what Jeffrey was editing, I believe, was that J,
Oh, really?
not the other.
New
Am I
J,
correct,
no.
I want to
Jeffrey?
do that one.
I fixed it.
He
Thank
fixed
you.
it already. I was gonna say,
was a good
I don't think we have to vote
Good
on
catch.
that.
Good catch.
So, that being said,
Thank you for bringing that up.
thank you, that's a good
That
one.
would have
Ray.
been a,
Yeah.
So I want to also talk
Typo.
about the controller,
Thank you.
the comptroller, and the CAFO.
I don't. I want to end at 10. My apologies. We don't have time for that right
So
now.
you're saying that we're not going to talk about it further, and you're going to...
We're going to have another meeting next Thursday, and I am taking it out.
Okay,
I won't talk about it.
okay.
Yeah, I've already talked to Jeff, and we've planned. Well, not is it June 5th, not next Thursday. My bad. I've talked to Jeff to start another meeting like this on June 5th, and to
That is next
continue.
Thursday.
That is next Thursday. It's next Thursday then,
Do we,
and to continue moving forward
okay.
until we can figure things out before we go off to session, because it's important that we get a lot of this done. But if you guys want to stay and continue to meet, that's fine. But
No, my problem was just that I felt like we were ready to move it to council.
I can do that. For item 6, yes. I'm ready to move it to council.
But item 6, I'm sorry to
Go ahead.
interrupt, because I actually agree with Councilor Vacan, because there was a small technical thing on the comptroller piece that's in item 6.
If we can do item 6 within a short time span, I mean, the comptroller conversation in a short time span, then I'm down. But I'm going to be honest with you. It's inefficient that we spend over 3 to 4 hours over one particular item and half of it, we're kind of, there was a lot of good work done,
Yeah.
I have to admit. I thank everyone for their time and the input and a lot of the stuff that was done behind the scenes too as well. But the reality is, we got to look out for our mental health. And for me, going in circles here until 11 o'clock is not going to make any sense for my mental health when I go home. So
I agree with you again, Mr. Chairman.
So go ahead, Councilor Magrath-Smith.
Can charter and rules do charter and rules?
I mean, if they want to.
So-
You have a quorum?
I'm gonna go. I'm sorry. I understand this. Honestly, to be fair, I don't make great decisions at 10 o'clock at night. I understand that Councilor Bacon wants to talk about comptroller. I am not comfortable sending this to the full council tonight.
Okay.
I'm not. And I'm not going to stay for charter and rules to continue discussing this personally, because this could have been an ordinance committee meeting.
It should have been.
Well, I don't know if I agree with that, but it could have been. And so all I'm going to say is, if you guys want to keep talking about this at 10 o'clock at night, you go right for it, but you're not going to get the best version of my brain. Right. And that's the reality. So
I'm fine with tabling it.
Okay.
Entertain a motion to table.
So,
You're right.
So moved.
You're right.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Entertain a motion to adjourn the ordinance
But
meeting.
before we adjourn,
All
can I
right,
ask
go ahead,
you-
Councilor
just a
Jordan.
friendly suggestion.
Yes.
We need to have, there is school departments all through this document. We've got to have, if we're doing that, like we're actually saying they're gonna do these things, like we have to have input from the schools and like who's in their office and are these people reporting to the CAFO? And otherwise you're sending up a version of this document that says the school department is gonna do this and this and this, and they're gonna send their budget transfers and they're set their budget and all these things related to the school department. And we haven't even had any conversation about the schools.
That makes perfect sense.
Some point, we got to get that in an hour talking about the schools.
I'm with all of that too.
Okay.
But the thing for me is if we continue, we're gonna get to what time until when, right? And I'm already worn out. I'm gonna tell you the truth. This is a part-time job, right? I have a full-time job and I have a family. So, and it's not just me. Everyone else here does too. Yeah, we've all been there, and if someone wants to go ahead and sacrifice a lot of things, that's great. I respect that. But I've come to the conclusion where at 10 o'clock.
No. I'm with you on
that.
that.
Yeah.
No, we ain't talking about this tonight.
All right.
I'm only throwing
I'm
these
with you on that.
concepts
Okay.
out that for future meetings.
Yes.
Can I say one more thing?
Yes, you can say. Let's do it.
So I just also really hope, though, that, we talk about phase 2. I hope that we can come to some sort of an agreement on what phase 2 looks like, because what I wouldn't, after all of the work that we've all put in, it would be a real shame if phase 1 gets completely bogged down. I don't want to meet next Thursday, but I'm gonna. Okay, I'm rescheduling things.
Thursday,
I'm rescheduling things already, right? I work at night.
We all have things.
Sure, great, that's fine. I'm speaking for a second though. I've been super respectful of everyone this evening, so I have the floor. Thank you. I am just hoping that we can sort of maybe at our next meeting hash out here's what I can sleep with, knowing that. Sleep at night knowing that this is phase 1, we can figure out phase 2. That's all. I just wanted to advocate for that there's so many things in this proposal, in this legislation that didn't get included or that haven't been addressed, and it's because it is a massive amount of change. So I completely agree that we have so many other things that we need to discuss. As always, I welcome conversations additionally, but that's all I wanted to say. Just want to advocate for that.
Thank you, and I appreciate the feedback that you brought in with Councilor Jordan with regards to bringing in the school department. At the next meeting, I'm hoping to meet at 5:30. my schedule is booked for next Thursday too as well, but I got to cancel and reschedule as well. And I'm not saying that just like to one up anybody or anything like that, but the reality is that this has to be done. And I want to make sure that we move forward and that everyone has the time and the space to converse. That's why today, for one particular item, it took this long, right? Everyone is having their say-so, being able to put their input, my bad, I can't even talk right, their input. And the reality is I want to respect everybody when they're in there, and I don't want to cut nobody off when they're talking. I don't want to have to do that. But if we're at a point where one particular item is taking 3 to 4 hours, even if we continue to schedule more meetings, it's gonna be the continuous thing, and we got to get to a point where we're having these conversations and everyone is expressing themselves and being able to voice their thoughts in ways that kind of make it more efficient and effective. And if it means that I got to do meetings at 5:30 moving forward so that we have 5:30 to 10 and we have more time, then I'll do that. That's not a problem. But yeah, that's where I'm at with that. So I'll entertain. Go ahead, Counselor.
My other point was it would be good. This is big stuff, and whether we end up agreeing on it or not, it's very important, and it would be good if our whole committee was here.
I appreciate that
we're
too.
Missing two members of a 5-member.
You are correct.
Thank you.
So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion to adjourn Charter and Rules.
So moved.
All in favor?
Everybody have a good night.